There was pretty much nothing different from this palace and the one Chu Feng was in before. The only difference was that, in the current palace, his eyes were flooded by objects that emitted faint fragrance and dazzled with radiance. They were all cultivation resources, heaven beads. Casting one's gaze over, one could see nothing but the top-quality heaven medicine, heaven beads. The number was simply uncountable, and other than heaven beads, there were even martial medicines, though there was a relatively fewer amount, and also that most were low quality, and there were not many medium-quality ones. There was still quite a bit. This can't be real, right? Could the reason why this place is so special be because this is the treasury, installed within the everlasting sea of blood, that the immortal execution archipelago stores their wealth in? At that instant, even Chu Feng's heart couldn't help jumping against his chest because the amount of cultivation resources at that place was too enormous. It could be said to be the place where he had seen the most amount of cultivation resources in his entire life, so much that it completely exceeded his imagination, even to the point that Chu Feng felt if he could refine all of the cultivation resources at that place, there existed a possibility for him to make a breakthrough. As long as he raised his cultivation by one more level, Chu Feng could step into the 7th level of the heaven realm. And at that time, if he used the power of the lightning again, Chu Feng's cultivation could enter the martial lord realm. After stepping over that gap, the difference in Chu Feng's power was like the difference between heaven and earth. If he fought against a martial lord again, he could definitely defeat a rank 2 martial lord. And he could even fight on a generally equal against a rank 3 martial lord. Yeah, big brother, there's another palace in front. There are even more beautiful things in that palace. Seeing that Chu Feng liked those things a lot, the smart little fishy pointed at the palace door before them and spoke. Really? Bring me over to see. After hearing Little Fishy's words, Chu Feng was elated. Little Fishy also didn't delay and once again opened another spirit formation door. After Chu Feng passed through it, the joy on his face immediately became even stronger, because inside the 3rd palace it was exactly as Little Fishy said. It was truly filled with cultivation resources. There was even more in there than in the 2nd palace. Other than a path going down the middle of the palace, both sides of the path were full of heaven beads. It looks like I've guessed correctly. This is likely the treasury that the immortal execution archipelago uses to store cultivation resources. These should be the fees they took from the ancient teleportation arrays in the everlasting sea of blood. No wonder after becoming the strongest force of power, the immortal execution archipelago continues to grow stronger and stronger. Right now, they have almost taken over all of the Eastern Sea region's channels of profit. They have limitless cultivation resources entering their pockets, so it is truly hard for them to not become stronger. At that moment, Chu Feng was truly ecstatic. If Chu Feng only felt he could possibly make a breakthrough with the cultivation resources in the previous palace, then now, when the resources of the 2 palaces combined, they would definitely allow Chu Feng to break through. This won't work. There are too many cultivation resources here. Even if I have a few more cosmos sacks, I can't move them all. But soon, the joy on Chu Feng's face was instantly replaced by a baffling expression. It was as Chu Feng said. There was really too much cultivation resources at that place. So much that Chu Feng himself could not move all of them away by himself. But it was clearly also impossible for him to move them bit by bit away. After all, he could not be sure when Ya Fei would return. Chu Feng, this is exactly like the proverb wealth is found within risk. Right now you only have one path you can walk on. Just at that time, Eggy spoke once again. Eggy, could it be that you want me to refine the cultivation resources right here? Chu Feng wasn't foolish, so he already thought of that before Eggy even spoke. However, like Eggy said, it was too risky. There's no other choice. Either refine these cultivation resources now, or quickly give them up and leave immediately. You can only choose one of the two. Of course, even if you leave now, you may not be guaranteed to safely escape. Perhaps you would even walk into Ya Fei. However, Even if you run into Yafei, you may not be absolutely dead. Don't forget the girl Little Fishy. Not only is she special, she is also powerful. Maybe with her, even Yafei can't harm you. But the prerequisite for that is you must use her as a shield. Chu Feng, if you wish for great things, you must be prepared to be ruthless. If you continue to concern yourself with trivial matters and remain hesitant and indecisive, no one can save you, reminded Eggy gravely. And as she spoke, there were even some intents of warning. Okay, I will listen to you. A trace of fierceness suddenly appeared in Chu Feng's gaze. Then, without saying anything more, he sat, legs crossed, gesturing with his hands. Then he widened his mouth and used a skill that could swallow the mountains and rivers. Asterisk after such a skill was used. Frenzied wind immediately came from all directions. The cultivation resources piled within the palace, and like they had gravity, rushed into Chu Feng's mouth. For cultivation, Chu Feng decided to stake it all onto that. Since he couldn't take them away, he decided to refine all of the cultivation resources there. Although refining required a certain amount of time, to the current Chu Feng, refining was actually a very simple matter, even though there were many cultivation resources at that place. After spending an hour, the cultivation resources in the third palace were all consumed and refined by Chu Feng. Moreover, at present, Chu Feng's cultivation rose greatly, and there was merely a thread's width between him and the 7th level of the heaven realm. Since things turned out the way they did, Chu Feng would naturally not back away after seeing a good situation unfolding and play it safe. Because of that, he returned to the second palace and continued to madly refine. Since there weren't as many cultivation resources in the second palace as the third one, the refining speed was even quicker. But what made Chu Feng rejoice was, Chu Feng only refined 2/3 of the resources in the second palace, yet the divine lightning in his body already started to surge, and his power also instantly rose. He made a breakthrough. Ever since using natural oddities, it was the first time he raised his cultivation by relying on a precious cultivation resource such as heaven beads. At present, Chu Feng's original body's cultivation had already reached the 7th level of the heaven realm. If he used the power of the 3 lightning, he could break the bindings of the heaven realm and step into the realm of a rank 1 martial lord. And with the methods Chu Feng grasped, it was likely he could even fight against a rank 3 martial lord. It had to be said that it was a great jump in quality. It was equal to Chu Feng stepping onto a completely new world. The strength he grasped was already legendary in the continent of the 9 provinces, but in this place, it wasn't really even much. But no matter what, to Chu Feng, that was still a historic moment. That breakthrough truly made Chu Feng endlessly excited. But after making his breakthrough, Chu Feng didn't stop refining, and continued refining another large portion of the cultivation resources, only until he felt that the remaining resources could all be put in his cosmos sack did Chu Feng finally stop. HMPH. Yafei locked me in this place definitely because this place is indestructible. But she didn't expect me to have Little Fishy's assistance. Not only did I successfully break away from my chains, I even plundered the cultivation resources in this place. Right now, the treasury is completely empty. Let me see how you explain this to the immortal execution archipelago. There were too many cultivation resources at that place, so Chu Feng felt that even to the immortal execution archipelago it was not a small amount. Because of Yafei's blunder, the cultivation resources in the palaces were all lost. Yafei would hence likely be punished because of it. Having such an exciting thought, Chu Feng had a whimsical urge, and with his fingers, he waved them around, using spirit formations to write large words in midair. In the end, he left behind, "I thank Beauty Yafei for her generous gift. Wu Qing shall accept them all. In the future, Wu Qing will definitely repay such a chest-rending favor by many times." After leaving those words, Chu Feng put away all the remaining cultivation resources into his cosmos sack. It had to be said that, with the numbers of heaven beads he had, Chu Feng could currently be called a genuine young wealthy person. "Wah, big brother, you're so strong. You really ate so many good-looking things in one go. Big brother, how did you do that? Can you teach little fishy?" And just at that moment, little fishy, who had waited on the side obediently all that time, ran over skippingly and leaped into Chu Feng's embrace while speaking adorably. Seeing that, Chu Feng couldn't help faintly smiling, and after he used his index finger to lightly tap little fishy's forehead, he said, "Big brother is a gourmand. I eat things too wolfishly. Little fishy, do not imitate me. You're a little beauty. You should eat things more slowly so you become more liked by others." "No." However, little fishy pouted, shook her head and said, "Little fishy doesn't want them to like me. They're all bad people. None of them have good intentions when they come close to me. Only big brother truly wishes good for me. Little fishy only wants big brother to like me." "Little fishy, how would you know that big brother truly wishes good to you and doesn't have any malicious intents?" asked Chu Feng with a smile. "Heh, little fishy isn't stupid, so of course I know clearly who's good and who's bad." She stuck out her tongue to Chu Feng, then pulled his hand, ran out and said, "Big brother, let's go. It's boring to stay in there for too long. Let's go out and play." Upon hearing those words, Chu Feng was completely lost for words. He thought he still underestimated the little girl. Although, according to normal ages, a child as big as little fishy should be at the age where they knew nothing, yet she was obviously different. After all, she was alone in the outside world, and lived for such a long period of time by herself. Who knew how many dangers she had met? Besides, though she seemed to have a very young appearance, in reality, Chu Feng was unable to ascertain whether little fishy was truly as old as she was from her appearance. Perhaps she was even a natural oddity, a little monster that had lived for several thousands of years. Afterwards, with little fishy leading the way, they very soon left that treasury. Chu Feng also discovered that it was a treasury built within the sea. Furthermore, it was extremely intricately concealed. If Chu Feng did not use the heaven's eyes, he would not be able to see any inklings of something being there. Casting his gaze over, he saw only an ordinary huge rock at the bottom of the sea. Even using spirit power to observe, he felt nothing out of the ordinary. From such, it could be seen that a gold cloak world spiritist's skills were truly extraordinary. They were on a completely different level than purple cloak world spiritists. If little fishy had not come out today, Chu Feng would truly have been unable to escape, with only death awaiting him. "Little fishy, where do you want to go? Big brother will come and play with you, okay?" As little fishy saved Chu Feng, he felt very grateful, and the method to repay that little girl was also very simple too. It was just to accompany and play with her. Sure, big brother is going to play with little fishy. This is really too good. But where to go to play? She put her hand under her chin, and her clear eyes were spinning about arbitrarily, pretending to be an important person pondering as she thought deeply. After a moment, her eyes suddenly lit up. Then to Chu Feng, she said very happily, "That's right. Big brother, that bad big sister who took big brother away, is fighting against that man-eating monster. Little fishy wants to go and watch." "What? Ya Fei is really fighting against that monster?" Hearing those words, Chu Feng couldn't help furrowing his brows. Chu Feng, who had just experienced a calamity, still felt quite some fear towards Ya Fei, but after thinking carefully for a while, Chu Feng still grabbed little fishy's feet and said, "Sure, little fishy, bring big brother over to watch, but this time let's not go too close." Hearing Chu Feng's agreement, little fishy strongly nodded in extreme happiness. Then she became a blur of light. With unbelievable speed, she brought Chu Feng and swam to the distance. Asterisk boom 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 asterisk above a certain region of sea in the everlasting sea of blood's center zone. Explosions sounded everywhere. Waves rolled about, and all sorts of energy were endlessly converging. In the sky was complete chaos. Occasionally, dark clouds appeared, firing down a frightening strike of lightning. Above the sea's surface, waves surged wildly. Occasionally, they became surging huge beasts and made deafening furious roars. As the two energy intersected, Berserk ripple after ripple were being created unceasingly. That place had already become the most dangerous area. Those below martial lords would die if they approached. Asterisk whoosh 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 asterisk Ya Fei stepped upon the clouds, her colorful skirt fluttering about. She was like a goddess as she commanded the changes in that land. She held a pink longsword. It was no longer than 3 feet, and it was as if it were weaved by petals, yet it emanated unbelievable power. When Ya Fei grasped it within her hands, her might multiplied by many times. Every wave of her sword would cause the world to tremble, and the pink longsword even made pink petals appear and fall everywhere. The petals fell like rain, but they contained terrifying power. Even the air would be sliced open, and all the areas they passed made space collapse and into havoc. It was extremely frightening. It was definitely not a simple elite armament, as even if it were a martial lord who used a simple one, would not be able to create such horrifying power. But that monster was also not a simple character. Currently, it was pushing into the sea and moving, causing the blood-colored seawater to be forced into the air. That scene was incomparably grand, but that wasn't even much. The most important part was its powerful strength. It actually caused the normal seawater to have immensely strong power. Even a single droplet could pierce through the clouds and shoot into the sky, to say nothing of such a vast quantity of seawater all available for it to use. So even though the special and powerful armament in Ya Fei's hand was unendingly creating devastating attacks, she could only fight on an even level as the monster. The outcome was indeterminate. So powerful. Is this a real battle of martial lords? The monster is so powerful. It seems like its power can only increase greatly within the water. Borrowing the power of the seawater, it is truly unstoppable. At that very instant, Chu Feng hid his aura well and were silently observing everything with little fishy in the faraway surging waves. After seeing their shocking battle, Chu Feng really couldn't help exclaiming their powerfulness. Although at present, as long as Chu Feng used the power of the 3 lightning, he had no problem becoming a rank 1 martial lord, and obtained strength that only martial lords had, and could use the martial power that existed in the world. Chu Feng knew very clearly that if he were to fight against the 2 in air, he would simply not even be able to take a single blow. Although they were both martial lords, they were on 2 completely different levels. Asterisk boom rumble rumble asterisk, another incomparably deafening explosion that resonated to areas several miles away. Another intense clash between Ya Fei and the monster. A monster like this has actually wasted almost 4 hours of my time, yet I am still unable to suppress it. If this becomes widespread news, where will all my face go? I cannot continue dragging this on. I must fight quick and end it quick, or else it will be disadvantageous to me. Suddenly, Ya Fei's gaze changed. Right hand clenching sword, left hand moving about to cast techniques. And along with the changes happening to her, layers upon layers of mighty aura started to gather towards her body, and layers upon layers of faint radiance started to swirl around her beautiful body. Ya Fei's power was rising rapidly at that moment, and it was getting more and more powerful. It had already infinitely neared the realm of a rank 6 martial lord. Mortal taboo illusory sword thrust. Suddenly, Ya Fei shouted explosively. Then the pink longsword in her hand bursted with light. Then she pointed it downwards, and with a boom, an enormous white light came slamming down. The white light's speed was extremely quick, and the area it covered was huge as well. Although if one looked at it from afar, it was like a frightening divine lightning descending from the heavens. But if one looked more carefully, they would discover that it was a sword, a super large sword that contained boundless power, and was made by white light. Asterisk hualalala asterisk, as though it felt how terrifying the huge white light sword was. The monster didn't meet force with force and block that strike. It flashed away and bore into the sea. At the same time, the enormous waves also kept on changing. Originally, the blood-red seawater was roiling about. Yet now, they became repetitive patterns like a turtle's shell and covered a region of the sea. Asterisk boom asterisk just at that instant, the huge white light sword finally came down, and along with a huge explosion, the seawater burst everywhere, becoming wave after wave that surged outwards. The defense the monster made was actually destroyed so easily by the huge white light sword. So powerful. I have never seen such a mighty martial skill. Could it be that it's a rank 9 martial skill? Chu Feng was shocked. Once again he experienced how powerful Ya Fei was. No, this isn't a rank 9 martial skill. It should be a taboo martial skill, said Eggy. Taboo martial skill. Hearing those words shocked Chu Feng again. He had heard of forbidden mysterious techniques, but it was the first time he heard of taboo martial skills. So, he quickly followed with a question. Eggy, what are talking about when you refer to the taboo martial skills? Could it be the same as forbidden mysterious techniques, something that is prohibited? No, though both forbidden mysterious techniques and taboo martial skills are both prohibited objects, there's an essential difference between the two. Martial skills are not powers from the physical body. It uses the energy in the world to create special abilities. Although those abilities are powerful, there's a limit. Rank 9 is the very end. After rank 9, humans start to receive backlash, injuries, and even death. So, martial skills above rank 9 are titled as taboo martial skills to tell humans that unless there is absolutely no other choice, you better not touch this taboo. And according to the difference in power, taboo martial skills are also split into different levels. There are 4 levels I know of: mortal taboo, earthen taboo, heaven taboo, and divine taboo. Before, Ya Fei shouted out mortal taboo, and in addition to the might she gave off, I suspected that she was going to use a taboo martial skill. After all, it's not strange for taboo martial skills to appear in a place like this, especially as she is a genius who's born in a peak and extraordinary power. After looking at the power of her martial skill, I am pretty much certain what she used was a taboo martial skill, said Eggy extremely surely. Eggy, from what you've said, doesn't this mean that after using a taboo martial skill, the person will definitely receive a backlash? And how long before the backlash begins? Chu Feng was quite intelligent. He already roughly understood what taboo martial skills were, but he still had to confirm the degree of backlash one obtained from them. However, if the taboo martial skill is truly fierce, and if the person definitely receives a backlash after usage, then as long as the monster could defend against the taboo martial skill Ya Fei currently used, after using it, Ya Fei would be defeated. The backlash of taboo martial skills is unavoidable, or else they wouldn't be called taboo martial skills. Even the lowest level mortal taboo is unavoidable. If you want to use a taboo martial skill and also decrease the degree of backlash the most, there are only 2 methods. First is the comprehension of the taboo martial skill. Deeper the comprehension, the greater one can diminish the fierceness of the backlash. Second is to use other sources of powers to activate the taboo martial skill. With that, even if there is backlash, it wouldn't be too fierce. This Ya Fei is quite smart. She clearly used the second method. She used the special armament in her hand to activate the taboo martial skill. Although by doing so, it's possibly because she can't activate the taboo martial skill with her own power and has to use the armament. But it must be said that by doing so, it will indeed reduce the backlash she receives, explained Eggy. Asterisk boom asterisk asterisk boom asterisk asterisk boom asterisk. As the two of them were talking, Ya Fei did not stop her attacks. Taboo martial skills were continued to be fired, and one after another, huge white-colored swords dropped down from the sky. Every time the sword appeared, it was like the descent of a sun, brightening the dusky world to an incomparably dazzling light. Moreover, every time it came down, a frenzied ripple would spread outwards, flipping everything upside down. The monster was clearly inferior to such a ferocious martial skill, but it could do nothing as the skill was too powerful. Ya Fei didn't even give it a chance to escape. The only thing it could do was to defend continuously, but as it went on, it became more and more powerless. Asterisk boom asterisk finally, with another deafening explosion, Waves roared like wild beasts as they surged, and water droplets that filled the sky were like sharp blades as they dropped straight down. The monster also made a painful cry as it sank into unconsciousness. HMPH, you're already quite good to have stayed that long under my mortal taboo illusory sword thrust. But regretfully, you will still die by my hands. Let me see what kind of monster you are. Seeing that she successfully struck the monster, the corners of Ya Fei's mouth rose to form a hint of a pleased smile. But she did not continue to attack and directly use her taboo martial skill to kill the monster. She stuck out her hand, causing boundless suction power to surge out. She wanted to draw out the monster from the sea. Crap, I can't let her catch the monster, or else who knows how this bastard will torment it. At that instant, Chu Feng panicked. Although he didn't know who exactly the monster was, he did not wish for it to land into Ya Fei's hands. But Ya Fei was really too strong. So strong that he, at present, simply couldn't defeat her. Since he could do nothing, he could only cast his pleading gaze towards Little Fishy and ask, "Little Fishy, can you help Big Brother and save that monster? Save that man-eating monster. Okay, okay. Watch, Little Fishy." After hearing his words, she hurriedly nodded. Not only was there not the slightest bit of fear, it instead looked like a lot of fun to her. Asterisk whoosh asterisk at that instant, he saw his surroundings blur past him. Little Fishy's speed was even several times quicker than normal. Before Chu Feng even had a chance to feel what happened, he had appeared before the monster asterisk bam asterisk in such a situation. Chu Feng didn't have time to admire Little Fishy's speed. He instantly grabbed the monster. It was because in the area they were currently in was within Ya Fei's attacking range. The boundless suction power was not only directed towards the monster, even they were being affected by the wild suction power, as they were sucked upwards from the waves that were rising into the sky. As for Little Fishy, she was very smart. In the instant Chu Feng grabbed the monster, she turned around, and once again used her light-like speed and swam deep under the sea. With inconceivable speed, they shook away Ya Fei's horrifying suction power. Damn it! I didn't provoke you, yet you dare to come and ruin my business. You are indeed in the same group as that monster. Although Little Fishy's speed was extremely quick, so quick that Ya Fei couldn't even see her face clearly, such mystical swimming speed made Ya Fei subconsciously confirm that the one who came and saved the monster was Little Fishy. Asterisk whoosh whoosh whoosh. Asterisk after going through quite a bit of trouble to defeat the monster, yet it was saved in the crucial moment by some person. That made Ya Fei incomparably furious. She held her pink longsword and wildly jabbed at the sea surface under her. Asterisk boom boom boom, asterisk countless petals shed from her sword, and covered the surface of the sea beneath like a storm. Again and again, they became terrifying ripples, causing maniacal ruin within the sea. But it was useless, as no matter how much more violent Ya Fei's attacks were, they could not harm Little Fishy in the slightest because she already left that area and was currently escaping to a distant location. Running. Let me see if you are truly as fast as the legends say, that no one can catch up to you. Feeling that Little Fishy had already left, Ya Fei coldly snorted, put away her pink longsword, leaped forward, and was prepared to chase after her. But just at that moment, her eyes suddenly flashed and her complexion changed greatly. Her originally rosy face instantly turned incomparably pale, lacking any traces of blood. Even her lips became blue and purple, as though she were poisoned and heavily injured. It seems like death was going to come for her at any moment. It was definitely the backlash of the taboo martial skill that came after her. In a situation such as that, even Ya Fei didn't dare to continue chasing forcefully. She quickly first threw into her mouth a special pellet of medicine, then sat cross-legged in the air, moving her hands around to activate a healing technique. She fought against the fierce backlash. Only after a good while did Ya Fei's face turn for the better. Her pale white complexion started to redden again, but it was still full of sweat. Even her clothes were drenched and her breathing because rough. It could be seen that the backlash she received was indeed nothing simple. After the backlash, Ya Fei also exhaled deeply as if being free from a heavy weight, but she was currently still a bit calmer than before. Looking at the water's surface that had already returned to its serenity, she swept her eyes across the horizon that was, once again, veiled by sunlight, and said rather suspiciously, "There seem to be two people who saved the monster just now. If one is little fishy, who's the second one?" Ya Fei seriously contemplated, yet could not obtain the answer. At the end, she lightly sighed. That girl's speed really isn't exaggerated. There is definitely some sort of mystery on her. If I can get it, perhaps I can even surpass that bastard Murong Shun. HMPH, you truly think that I'm yours? Wait until my strength surpasses yours. Who cares if you're the young archipelago master or not? I don't want to marry, so I want. No one can stop me. Speaking to there, Ya Fei suddenly smiled. It was so beautiful enough to bewitch all of the living. The reason she smiled was because she recalled something. So she leaped forward, and as her skirt fluttered, she disappeared, leaving behind only faint bodily fragrance belonging to her. The place Ya Fei headed towards was none other than the treasury she locked Chu Feng in. She was thinking that the current Chu Feng very likely had already become a puppet, just in time to be the bait to catch little fishy. However, as she led 100 martial lord subordinates and returned to the treasury, preparing to let them see the fruits of her harvest, her expression changed in an instant. The treasury built within the everlasting sea of blood was actually completely empty. Not even a single strand of hair remained. The treasury used to store their profits was obviously robbed. Who was it? Who dares to steal the things from my immortal execution archipelago? If I get hold of who did it, I will rend their corpse into 10,000 pieces. Men, check. Go check carefully. Investigate every single person who has the spirit formation password to enter the treasury. The robber must be found, shouted Ya Fei strictly, because that place was extremely hidden, and that the spirit formation was very powerful. Her first thought was that someone in the internal parts of the immortal execution archipelago robbed the treasury. As you order. Hearing their commands, the 100 subordinates behind Ya Fei did not dare to dally at all. After all, the treasury being robbed was not a small matter. So, they quickly left to investigate who was the most suspicious. After her subordinates left, Ya Fei continued forward with quick steps. Very soon she arrived at the second palace. Initially, she hoped that the second palace would be in pristine condition, but after entering, her already furious expression became even stronger because the second palace was also completely empty. God damn, I've only left for less than half a day. Who exactly can plunder so many cultivation resources in this treasury? After successively seeing 2 palaces being robbed cleanly, though Ya Fei was angry, she was also very calm. Her gaze was looking about and thinking who was the most suspicious. As she thought, she did not stop walking and continued forward. She arrived at the final palace. To her, although the treasury being robbed was something that made her extremely angry, in reality, to her, or the immortal execution archipelago, the amount of cultivation resources in the treasury still didn't count up to any divinely huge number. Right now, the most important thing to her was Chu Feng. Only Chu Feng could allow her to more easily catch little fishy. In comparison to little fishy, the cultivation resources in the treasury weren't much, so she had to make certain whether Chu Feng was still there or not. Heavens, this is. However, when she crossed through the final spirit formation and entered the palace that should have locked Chu Feng in, her beautiful face lost all color, and she was instantly stupefied. At the same time, in the center of the palace, the cross that bound Chu Feng still remained, but no more traces of him did. Although Chu Feng was gone, there were a few rows of words left in the center of the palace. They were words made by spirit formations, and the content was, "I thank Beauty Ya Fei for her generous gift. Wu Qing shall accept them all. In the future, Wu Qing will definitely repay such a chest-rending favor by many times." Damn it, it was him. The smart Ya Fei immediately understood the truth. The one who robbed the place wasn't a traitor in the immortal execution archipelago. It was the person she locked in the treasury. She thought that this place was indestructible, so imprisoning Chu Feng here to make him a puppet was the best location. Yet she never would have expected Chu Feng to use some unknown method to not only escape, but to also rob everything, making her take such a huge blow. At that moment, Ya Fei gritted her teeth in anger. Even her chest could explode from fury, and she was so angry that smoke could be seen coming from her facial orifices. She clenched her fist tightly and ferociously said, "Wu Qing, Wu Qing, Wu Qing, damn Wu Qing. So the one who saved the monster with little fishy was you. I've truly underestimated you. I didn't expect you to have this ability. Not only did you escape from this treasury, you even stole a year's worth of profit from my immortal execution archipelago. But don't you worry, I have never suffered losses from anyone. Don't even think of being an exception. Do you truly think you can escape from my palms? I will let you know what I am capable of. It is something that you cannot even imagine. You will all die." After speaking, Ya Fei suddenly willed and formless aura instantly spread everywhere. With a bang, the spirit formation words Chu Feng left behind were shattered, and simultaneously, strong bloodlust filled the entire palace. As Ya Fei became enraged, Chu Feng and Little Fishy had already left the everlasting sea of blood. The reason why they were so fast was naturally all because of Little Fishy's speed. Although they had already left for safety's sake, they did not remain on top of the sea surface. They entered the sea and laid a concealment spirit formation. Who exactly are you? At present, Chu Feng was carefully examining the monster. He then discovered that it was as if the densely packed water grasses were merged with its body, and even with his spirit power, he could not detect anything through them. He could not examine its condition. Even using the heaven's eyes, he could not. So, that made a thought enter his head: the monster was truly only a monster. Its appearance was indeed only of a special monster. Then yet, why did that monster have such a familiar feel to it? And why didn't it kill him? Asterisk whoosh asterisk. However, just as Chu Feng was patching up his guesses, the monster suddenly opened its eyes. Immediately as the blood-red eyes appeared, Chu Feng felt extremely dense bloodlust. But the bloodlust only existed for a moment before disappearing into nothingness. As in the moment the monster saw Chu Feng, its blood-red eyes instantly brightened. Obviously, it recognized him. "You really do recognize me. Who are you? Where did you come from?" Seeing such a reaction, Chu Feng hurriedly barraged it with questions. He truly wanted to know why the monster didn't kill him, exactly how it was related to him, and whether or not it was truly related to his ancestry. Asterisk Wuao asterisk. However, just at that moment, the monster hugged its head with both hands and knelt on the floor. It started to cry in anguish. Its voice was loud, causing the spirit formation they were in to violently shake. At first, Chu Feng panicked a bit as he faced such a change from the monster, because he could not be sure if the monster was truly not going to harm him or not. With its strength, if it truly lost control and wished to harm Chu Feng, he would not be able to do anything at all. But Chu Feng gradually discovered that concurrent to the monster's cries of agony, its voice actually changed as well. From the low roar of something like a wild beast, it slowly became a human-like sound. At the same time, the monster's appearance also changed. The long water grasses started to retract. Then at the end, it became a humanoid shape. It was a female, covered by blue-colored scales all across her body, but she still had blood-red eyes, and her face was fraught with pain as she screamed miserably. "It's you!" After seeing that person, Chu Feng's expression changed greatly too as he felt such disbelief, because he had already recognized who the person in front of him was. She was the #1 disciple of the Jade Maiden School from the continent of the 9 provinces, the one who had a relationship with Chu Feng, Yan Ruyu. Although she looked nothing like before, as she lost all of her former beautiful complexion, Chu Feng was still able to determine that the female was Yan Ruyu. Chu Feng was truly a bit befuddled at that moment. He had made many guesses, trying to speculate the identity of the monster, but it being Yan Ruyu didn't even cross his mind. After all, the monster was currently so strong, Yet Yan Ruyu's strength back then wasn't very strong. Even though she practiced forbidden mysterious techniques, it shouldn't be possible for her to reach her present stage of strength. Scram, quickly scram, or else I will kill you. Just at that moment, the monster suddenly roared furiously at Chu Feng. Though its voice was a bit rigid and full of resentment, the tone did indeed belong to Yan Ruyu, no doubt. Wah, now this is interesting. Chu Feng, this ruthless monster that refines humans, is actually your former lover. No wonder she isn't willing to kill you. He. After recognizing Yan Ruyu, even Eggy was surprised. But she was different from Chu Feng. As the bystander, she clearly had an attitude of schadenfreude as she looked at the drama, lacking any fear of aggravating the situation. Why has this happened? How can it be you? Upon recognizing Yan Ruyu, Chu Feng's gaze glittered, his heart in complete disorder. Because looking at it from a certain point of view, the reason why Yan Ruyu became what she is today was all because of Chu Feng. If Chu Feng hadn't forced a relationship with Yan Ruyu, it wouldn't have made the forbidden mysterious technique she practiced in lose control. Although it was Yan Ruyu in the wrong at first, after all, Chu Feng hadn't had too severe of a loss. It was only because he wanted to vent his anger that he turned a female with quite a good future into her current appearance, that looked neither like a human nor a ghost. Deep in Chu Feng's heart, the only thing surging about was regret. Wah ha 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 ha. How can it not be her? However, just as Chu Feng's heart was in chaos, having quite some trouble accepting the truth in front of his eyes, Yan Ruyu suddenly laughed sinisterly, and extremely strangely as well. Even her speaking voice became abnormally sharp. Looking back at Yan Ruyu in front of his eyes, Chu Feng discovered that the scales on her body had already faded away, turning her back into the former alluring, great beauty. Seductive curves, snow-white skin, pretty face, bright eyes, fiery, exceptional body. All of that was not covered by anything at present. In complete bare nakedness, it appeared before Chu Feng. But facing such changes from Yan Ruyu, Chu Feng lightly furrowed his brows, as if he understood something, then fiercely and austerely asked, "Who exactly are you?" Wah ha ha ha. Who am I? Am I not Yan Ruyu? Don't tell me you don't recognize my appearance. Yan Ruyu's provocative body made a bewitching action at Chu Feng. You are not Yan Ruyu. Who are you? Chu Feng firmly believed that the person in front of him wasn't Yan Ruyu. At least her tone of speech didn't seem like hers. Chu Feng, how can you be like this? Have you forgotten what you've done to me back then in the Azure province? Yan Ruyu had a face full of grievance, but her eyes glittered peculiarly. How do you know I'm Chu Feng? Chu Feng was many times more shocked. The person in front of him even saw through his transformational mask. Not only did she see his real appearance, she even knew his and Yan Ruyu's past. Ha, it is merely a simple mask. It can trick ordinary humans, but it cannot trick this demon. I already recognize who you were in the first glance I cast at you. Yan Ruyu then abruptly cackled complacently. You really aren't Yan Ruyu. Who are you? Why are posing as her? Chu Feng grasped the holes in her words and asked ferociously. I am indeed not Yan Ruyu. But now, I am Yan Ruyu because a long time ago I have merged into one with her. The reason why Yan Ruyu can have such powerful strength right now is all because of me. She will become even stronger because of me. As for you, although you're the person who released me, since you know my secret, I will not allow you to continue surviving. Yan Ruyu isn't willing to kill you, but I am. As she spoke, Yan Ruyu's complexion suddenly turned fierce. At the same time, boundless killing intent surged out, instantly enveloping Chu Feng inside. No! However, just as the killing intent came, it instantly vanished. Yan Ruyu suddenly hugged her head again and roared at Chu Feng, "Leave, scram! God damn, you useless girl. Isn't he the one who did this you? Didn't you swear to kill him? Right now he's in front of you. Why aren't you killing him? And why again and again are you forgiving him?" The sharp and chilly voice rang out again. "Shut up. He isn't the one who made me into this state. It's you. I cannot continue allowing you to use my body to commit these heinous acts. I will kill you. Kill me. To kill me is to kill you. Are you going to kill yourself? Because of the wicked humans, you're going to kill yourself. To prevent you from killing any more people, I am willing to commit suicide. Ha ha, how righteous and benevolent. But sadly, this body no longer belongs to you. Watch obediently on how I slaughter this damn man who tainted you. Finally, Yan Ruyu's real voice was suppressed, and the gaze full of coldness and killing intent was cast towards Chu Feng once again. Brat, you've got quite the charm. You actually made that idiotic girl willing to oppose me. Who are you? What do you want for you to let Yan Ruyu go? Chu Feng was no idiot, so the scene that just happened already roughly told him about some things. The one in front of his eyes was indeed Yan Ruyu, no doubt. But there seemed to be another existence that was occupying Yan Ruyu's physical body. It was a very powerful existence, and it was the one that was doing all sorts of immoral acts such as refining humans, and also the one that turned Yan Ruyu into such a monster. Who I am is not important, and no matter what, I will not let Yan Ruyu go because she is already one with me. We live and die together. We exist and perish together. I am her and she is me. But you don't need to worry about anything because my existence will make this foolish, extremely ordinary, and completely unknown girl into a deity in this world, a ruler that will take over this land. The one you should worry about is yourself and the little girl by your side. Both of you will be refined by me, and your powers will be used by me. Die. Yan Ruyu's gaze turned blood red and her bloodlust was revealed. As she spoke, she aimed to attack Chu Feng. However, just at that moment, a faint light suddenly shone from Yan Ruyu's stomach. Chu Feng saw it clearly. It was a mark. Coincident with the emergence of the mark, Yan Ruyu instantly cried out, as if she were bearing some sort of pain. Simultaneously, Yan Ruyu's entire body changed greatly once again. First were the blue-colored scales. They grew and covered her snow-white skin again. Then from the gaps between the scales, strands of water grasses sprung forth. In only a blink she returned to her former monster appearance. Boom! Suddenly, a huge explosion rang out. The concealment spirit formation Chu Feng laid was shattered, and as it shattered, boundless pressure also enveloped them, wrapping around Chu Feng, little fishy, and also the monster. It's you. Raising his head and looking, Chu Feng's pupils couldn't help shrinking because through the seawater, he could see a beautiful body standing on the air atop the surface of the sea. It was Ya Fei. HMPH. Do you truly think you could escape from my hands? Ya Fei held a pink longsword in her hand, and her skirt fluttered despite the lack of wind. She gave off an impressive atmosphere while fully showing her killing intent. I didn't expect her skills to be this high level. She actually left behind a mark without anyone knowing on Yan Ruyu's body. At that instant, Chu Feng had a revelation. He knew that the mark on Yan Ruyu's stomach was definitely left behind by Ya Fei. That was also why Ya Fei could so quickly find them again and lock onto their position. AO ****, transforming into monster state. Yan Ruyu seemed no longer able to use human words, and after making a furious and bitter roar, it wanted to flee. Little fishy, run. At the same time, Chu Feng also quickly grabbed onto Little Fishy's feet and wanted to immediately escape. You want to escape? I have come prepared today. Not a single one of you should even think of escaping. But as she looked at the three people who were going to escape, Ya Fei was not afraid in the slightest as she knew she had backing. Her hands intersected, then used a special technique. Afterwards, she lightly snorted and shouted, "Seal." Then with a boom, radiance shone everywhere in that area. Countless symbols appeared and formed an enormous cage. It imprisoned Chu Feng and the others within, sealing all escape. Crap! Before she appeared, she already hiddenly laid an imprisonment formation. Shouted Chu Feng in his mind, although the monster still had very powerful strength. After all, its injuries caused by Ya Fei before had yet to be healed. Currently, its power was greatly diminished, and it simply could not destroy the formation, let alone fight against Ya Fei. As for little Fishy, although when she faced dangerous things the guarding light would appear, the formation was only locking them in and not harming them. So little Fishy's powerful and special power of protection had no chance to be used. Asterisk hualalala asterisk, the formation started to shrink, and at the end became a spirit formation cage that was just big enough to hold the three of them. It departed from the sea and arrived in front of Ya Fei. After raising the spirit formation cage, Ya Fei laid more and more powerful spirit formations, making it so the cage was indestructible. At least Chu Feng and the others were unable to open it. Only after doing all that did she strangely smile and said while looking at the three in the cage, "The three of you will die very miserably. Young lady, it's fine if you want to kill that monster, but why involve others? Especially that little girl. She does not seem to even be over 3 years old. Are you going to kill her too? If you do this, what difference is there between you and that monster? As a person from the immortal execution archipelago, you don't feel ashamed." But just as Ya Fei felt she was going to have her way, a voice that wasn't very loud yet entered everyone's hearts and shook their souls suddenly rang out. After hearing that voice, Chu Feng's and the others' faces couldn't help changing as they started to look around everywhere because they could tell from the voice alone that the person who came was absolutely not a simple person. "Who are you? Being so sneaky. Are you also with these monsters?" Ya Fei also looked around everywhere, but she could not discover traces of the speaker. "You don't need to ask me who am I. Regardless, let the three of them go and quickly leave." That voice sounded once again. The domineeringness in it was fully explicit, looking down upon Ya Fei entirely. "HMPH. Indeed, you're with that monster. Don't even think of hiding around and concealing yourself. If you want to save them, you must bring out some strength, or else your empty bluffing will not scare me." Although Ya Fei did say those words clearly, she was also afraid. Taking steps forward, afterimages were instantly created. She used a powerful bodily martial skill, and like light, flew towards the distant horizon. Asterisk boom asterisk ah. However, when Ya Fei flew for less than several miles, she collided into an invisible wall. The forceful power bounced her back, as a mouthful of blood was sprayed out of her mouth. At the same time, a golden light flashed across in the place Ya Fei crashed into. Although it was only a flash, it was, doubtlessly, golden light. The thing blocking Ya Fei was a golden spirit formation. "Damn it, who are you? Do you dare to reveal yourself and let me see who exactly is protecting these heinous monsters?" Ya Fei panicked slightly. The realm of Gold Cloak World spiritists wasn't something that ordinary people could enter. It required one to be at least a rank 9 martial lord. At present, the person who was obstructing her was actually a Gold Cloak World spiritist. It made her aware that the current situation was not going well because today, at least with her strength, she would not be able to take away Chu Feng, little Fishy, and the monster. But that made her very bitter. So, she really wanted to know who the person was, so in the future it would assist her in taking revenge for today's events. "Little girl, you have a way with words. Since you want to know who I am so much, I will grant you your wish." Finally, the voice rang out again, but this time it actually came by Chu Feng's side. Asterisk him asterisk at the same time the voice rang out. The spirit formation cage that imprisoned Chu Feng and the others actually broke on its own. Simultaneously, two people appeared beside Chu Feng. When he turned his head to look, Chu Feng couldn't help be greatly shocked. Currently, beside him were two females, one young and beautiful, and also had quite some gracefulness. That person Chu Feng recognized xianxia of the Lover's Terrace, and by her side stood another female. She wore a white long skirt as well, and the skirt's appearance was very dignified, but it could still be seen that her figure was very good, not the slightest bit inferior to Yan Ruyu and Ya Fei. However, a thin fabric was veiled over her face. Despite it being thin, it still covered her appearance, and only a pair of walnut-sized eyes could be seen. Although it covered her face, from the outline it could still be seen that she was a beauty. At that instant, xianxia, who had quite an outstanding appearance as she stood next to her, clearly seemed quite overshadowed. That wasn't because of her appearance. After all, she covered her face. Although one could conjecture that she was a beauty, there was no way to determine that her beauty truly prevailed over xianxia's. The thing she surpassed xianxia with was her atmosphere only. Atmosphere that made her seem like she left the secular world. It was too striking. Even Ya Fei's devastatingly beautiful complexion could only remain equal before such a cultivated atmosphere, and not surpass it. With such an outstanding appearance, such an outstanding atmosphere, such powerful strength, in addition to appearing along with xianxia, and her being so respectful that woman, without even thinking, Chu Feng knew who she was. She was definitely the holy daughter of the Burning Heaven Church, the most beautiful female back then that stunned the Eastern Sea region. Who are you? Do you dare to lift your veil and reveal your true appearance? Chu Feng knew that she was, but Ya Fei clearly didn't. She, who was often arrogant, did not know her limits and questioned while pointing at her. Shut up. You think you can speak to my master like that? Just at that moment, xianxia couldn't bear Ya Fei's ignorance any longer and shouted at her. HMPH, do you think you, a little one in the heaven realm, are worthy to speak to me like that? Ya Fei was enraged. Without speaking anymore, she prepared to attack xianxia. However, before allowing Ya Fei to attack, S brows lightly knitted together. Formless power then explosively surged out of her body, forcing Ya Fei, who was in the air, back several steps. Even on her pretty face emerged some paleness. Damn, you actually dare to attack me. Do you know who I am? Said Ya Fei fiercely, as she was unwilling to accept the current situation. Ho lightly smiled at Ya Fei's heckling, then said, Ya Fei, fiancé of the young master of the immortal execution archipelago, Murong Shun. Your parents have quite good positions in the immortal execution archipelago, and your grandfather, Ya Zongyun, is even less simple, being the head of the 9 immortals of the immortal execution archipelago. Am I correct? HMPH, since you know who I am, you still dare to be so impolite to me. Do you not fear my grandfather nor the immortal execution archipelago? Asked Ya Fei. Fear. You truly think that your immortal execution archipelago is invincible in this world? Suddenly, furrowed her brows, then a hint of a cold glare flashed into her eyes. **** After the cold glare appeared, even Ya Fei's complexion changed greatly, and she couldn't help taking one step back because, within the cold glare, she felt killing intent. Remember, I am Taoist Chioshui of the Lover's Terrace. Today, I will take these 3 people away. If you have any dissatisfaction, you can return and report it. No matter if it's your grandfather or your immortal execution archipelago. If any of you wish to find me for revenge, you can directly come to the Lover's Terrace to find me. But now, before I have a change of heart, you better scram. Shouted coldly. You? Ya Fei was extremely displeased by being frightened by such a person, but recalling her cold glare in her gaze just now, as well as her attitude that didn't put the immortal execution archipelago in her eyes at all, she could only bite down on her teeth. Then, after shuffling her feet a few times where she stood, she turned around and flew back towards the everlasting sea of blood. Junior Wuqing pays his respect to Senior Chioshui. After Ya Fei left, Chu Feng quickly turned around and saluted to Chioshui Fuyan. I know you have things you want to say, but now, I need to first take care of this monster. It will not be late to say those words later. Chioshui Fuyan waved her hand at Chu Feng, indicating for him and Little Fishy to stay at farther distance from xianxia. As you wish. Seeing that, Chu Feng did not dare to move slowly as he knew that Chioshui Fuyan wanted to help Yan Ruyu. So he quickly brought Little Fishy and backed away to the side. You wicked monster, you dare to perform abominable acts using a human's body and hunt them for cultivation. Today, I will bring you to justice. Xianxia Fuyan extended both hands and speedily moved them about to cast a technique. They were very quick, and Chu Feng couldn't even see her movements clearly. He could only see countless blurs flash past. Her hand technique was profound and simply unfathomable. Asterisk Wuao tilde asterisk, seeing the disadvantageous situation, Yan Ruyu started to run around everywhere. But it was useless, as the formation Xianxia Fuyan laid was really too strong. There was simply no chance for her to escape. At present, she could only bear the anguish of the formation Xianxia Fuyan laid, and unceasingly cry out painfully, "Junior Wuqing, I am truly sorry to have let you suffer, but it was my master's intent, so I could not do anything at all." Just at that moment, Jiang Wanshi walked up to Chu Feng's side. "Senior Jiang, what exactly happened?" asked Chu Feng puzzledly. He was really a bit confused. "Oh, so it's like this. Actually, when Junior Wuqing came to the Lover's Terrace and asked to visit my master, she was there. But my master didn't want to see Junior Wuqing, and even specially told me hiddenly to tell you that she wasn't there, and that she had gone to the everlasting sea of blood to capture the monster. And shortly after Junior Wuqing left, my master brought me to this place and was hiddenly protecting you. Back then when you were caught by the monster, my master and I were there. At first, she wanted to make her move and save you, and also eradicate the monster along the way. But she didn't expect the monster to not kill Junior Wuqing. Seeing that there was something strange going on, she didn't show herself. Only until today, when Ya Fei wanted to kill you, was she willing to appear," said Jiang Wanshi, explaining. "So it's like that." At that instant, Chu Feng felt rather helpless. He knew that Xianxia Fuyan didn't trust him and was intentionally observing him secretively. Likely, Xianxia Fuyan currently already knew that he was wearing the transformational mask to conceal his real face, and also knew that he was actually called Chu Feng. But the thing he felt most helpless towards was that he didn't detect anything regarding Xianxia Fuyan's tracking. If he had to blame something, he could only blame his own lack of strength. In front of a powerful expert, he was still too petty. "Junior Wuqing, my master does have good intentions, so I hope you won't mind," advised Jiang Wanshi with a smile, as if she knew Chu Feng's thoughts. As she spoke, she even cast a glance at little Fishy in Chu Feng's embrace. After seeing such a cute little Fishy, she actually couldn't help extending her hand to touch her beautiful face. This little girl is truly adorable. In the future, she will definitely grow up to be an exceptional great beauty. Pa. However, before Jiang Wanshi touched little Fishy, she abruptly evaded and even opened her small mouth and spat out some spittle at Jiang Wanshi. If she didn't have quick reactions, that large spit would have landed on her face. "Little Fishy, don't be disrespectful." Seeing that, Chu Feng was very shocked. He never expected little Fishy to be so impolite to others. HMPH. Little Fishy disagreed with Chu Feng's reprimand, so she raised her head and pouted, exhibiting a cute appearance of "you can't tell me what to do." "Oh, this child is truly adorable." But what surprised Chu Feng was that, as she faced little Fishy's previous action, not only was Jiang Wanshi not angry, she even lightly chuckled as she covered her mouth. Her fondness of little Fishy actually increased and didn't diminish. Asterisk boom rumble rumble asterisk. But just at that moment, an explosion came from the formation Xianxia Fuyan laid. Looking towards the origin of the sound, Chu Feng and Jiang Wanshi both couldn't help but gasp. At that very instant, the formation was filled with golden spirit formation chains, and those chains were tightly binding Yan Ruyu. But Yan Ruyu was even resisting against such a powerful formation. Chu Feng and the others could clearly see layers and layers of boundless power opposing the golden chains. However, that wasn't even much. Most importantly, the powerful Xianxia Fuyan actually had an expression of strain. Her forehead was full of bead-sized sweat droplets. Even her hands were lightly trembling, as if enduring some sort of pressure. Myriad Technique Demon Execution Formation, Seal. Suddenly, Chou Fuyan hands, which were casting a technique, changed from their usual pattern, and she lightly yelled. The vast golden formation started to alter, becoming a small-scale cage that was rapidly shrinking. Finally, the cage became humanoid and locked Yan Ruyu inside like a coffin. Ha 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 ha, foolish humans. To want to exercise me is not something you can do. We are already one. To kill me is to kill her. There is no other choice. Ha 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 ha. But just at that moment, sharp and mad shouts came from the humanoid coffin. It was from the monster in Yan Ruyu's body. Asterisk whoosh 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 asterisk. However, Chou Fuyan ignored the monster's loud yells. With one hand, she drew something in the air. A golden symbol was then formed. After the golden symbol landed on top of the humanoid coffin, from an initially quivering state it calmed down, and the monster's shouts also vanished. Wu Qing thanks Senior for the help. Seeing that, Chu Feng hurriedly went forward and paid his respects to Chou Fuyan. Wu Qing, aren't you called Chu Feng? However, hearing Chu Feng's words, Chou Fuyan lightly frowned, and a hint of displeasure flashed past. Chu Feng could do nothing about that situation, thinking that indeed, his conversation with Yan Ruyu before was all heard by Chou Fuyan. But what happened had happened, and Chu Feng could not do anything about it. He could only say with an apologetic face, "This junior did not intend to offend, but my master gave me an order and Chu Feng didn't dare to betray it, so I could only walk in the Eastern Sea region with a fake name. HMPH, do you even need to hide it from me? Your master truly dotes on you, huh?" Chou Fuyan glared at Chu Feng once again, the jealousy in her words evident, but also containing a bit of suspicion. And as he faced Chou Fuyan words, Chu Feng was quite speechless and didn't know how to respond. "You don't need to thank me. The monster in your friend's body is not simple at all. To kill it means it must be expelled from your friend's body. But it had already merged with her at an earlier time, and with my strength, I simply cannot force it to leave the body. So I can only temporarily seal it," said Chou Fuyan. "Senior Chou is my friend all right now?" asked Chu Feng concernedly. "All right, you look at her. If she were all right, then she wouldn't have been sealed by me. If you want her to be all right, the monster must be taken out of her body. But you don't need to worry. I have an old friend and her spirit formation techniques are quite superb. She also grasps techniques ordinary people do not know of, and she studies a lot about this kind of monster. Perhaps she could even help your friend," said Chou Fuyan. "Then sorry to trouble you, Senior." Chu Feng hurried thanked her upon hearing her words. If it were before, maybe Chu Feng wouldn't have been so worried about Yan Ruyu's life. However, after seeing the pain she had endured, and especially as she didn't kill him, he truly wanted to help Yan Ruyu out. After all, looking at it from a certain perspective, the reason why Yan Ruyu turned into her current state was really because of him. First, stop feigning concern. Wanting to save her is fine, but before that, I still have some things I wish to ask you. Follow me. As Chou Fuyan spoke, she flicked her hand, calling Chu Feng and the others all to her, and simultaneously was already flying. "Senior Chou, the everlasting sea of blood is ahead. Could it be that you want to go there?" However, looking in the direction Chou Fuyan was heading towards, Chu Feng felt greatly confused. "That's right. I am heading to the everlasting sea of blood for a night's rest," she answered. But what? But that's the immortal execution archipelago's territory. HMPH. Others fear the immortal execution archipelago, but I do not. Chou Fuyan coldly smiled. Judging by her tone, she didn't put the immortal execution archipelago in her eyes at all, and Chu Feng could understand why Chou Fuyan acted like so. After all, he had learnt some things from his master, Chio Feng. At present, the immortal execution archipelago was indeed strong. That was something indisputable. But after all, in the times when the crippling night demon sect and the burning heaven church prospered, the Immortal Execution Archipelago wasn't really anything. So, no matter how much stronger the Immortal Execution Archipelago became, in the eyes of the crippling Night Demon Sect and the burning Heaven Church, it was nothing more than a force that rose in power because of the lack of stronger forces in the Eastern Sea region, especially for people who had very high positions before in the Eastern Sea region, such as Chiu Fuyan and Chiu Feng. To an even greater degree, they looked down on the Immortal Execution Archipelago, but Chu Feng knew that it was indeed very strong. It was something he could see from what he gathered after arriving in the Eastern Sea region. And even though Chiu Fuyan was powerful in terms of aura, she was quite a distance from Chiu Feng and Huangfu Haoiwei. It meant that even if she had entered the realm of martial kings, she likely didn't have a very high rank. With her cultivation, no matter how one looked at it, declaring war at the Immortal Execution Archipelago was too far of a stretch. If it were one person, then it would be fine. But now, bringing them to the everlasting sea of blood for a rest. If the Immortal Execution Archipelago coincidentally had reinforcements, then that would not be a good situation. However, Chiu Fuyan was a senior, after all, and her nature was very domineering. So even though Chu Feng felt that it wasn't a good arrangement, he couldn't say much else, and could only follow. Like that, Chu Feng and the others swaggeringly entered the everlasting sea of blood, and even rented a little floating island for resting. News about this also quickly spread. For the uninitiated, it wasn't really much, as it was only some important person who came to the everlasting sea of blood. Some people even felt that it was good news, because that person would definitely provide some assistance in catching the monster. But to Ya Fei, she was so angry she couldn't sit relaxed. The angry her almost destroyed her own residence. Damn it, bastard, this is truly despicable. She even dares to come to my everlasting sea of blood for a rest. She is goading me. She is goading my Immortal Execution Archipelago. Taoist Chiu Shui. Lover's Terrace Pa. If you back me into a wall, I will stamp your entire Lover's Terrace flat. Go ahead, be arrogant, be wild. Ya Fei was so angry even her internal organs could explode. She, who had no place to vent her anger, could only roar and curse and smash and break things in her own room to release her fury. Lady Ya Fei, this servant wishes to see you for a matter. Though just at that moment, a female voice suddenly rang out from the outside. I won't listen to anything, scram right now. Ya Fei was currently in a rage, so how could she be in the mood to listen to such troubling things? She howled furiously at the door, and as she howled, she attached a strand of pressure, which then pierced through the door and forced the female, a rank 3 martial lord, away in the air, injuring her slightly. A hint of displeasure and anger emerged onto the female's face when she was treated like that by Ya Fei. After all, she was a martial lord too, and her rank wasn't low. In front of Ya Fei, perhaps she wasn't much, but in front of others she was definitely a great genius. Resentment birthed from her heart when a person such as herself had to service another person like slave. But when she occasionally even needed to bear Ya Fei's bursts of anger, any person would feel displeased. However, not only did she dare not let a hint of displeasure and anger manifest, those emotions even flashed by, and replacing them was her usual smile of both respect and fear. It was because, as long as she thought of Ya Fei's position in the Immortal Execution Archipelago, she really didn't dare to show bad temper, especially when she saw the letter currently in her hands. Even more so, she didn't dare to show bad temper. Although the Immortal Execution Archipelago was powerful at present, there were very, very few people who were like Ya Fei, having 100 martial lords behind her, and all of them being young, beautiful, outstandingly talented females. The reason why Ya Fei could have such treatment was not only because she was the fiancée of the young archipelago master, Murong Shun. More importantly, it was because Ya Fei had a powerful grandfather. In the Immortal Execution Archipelago, the strongest person was the archipelago master. Other than him, there were also 9 others who held extremely strong strength and controlled a region of land. These 9 people were people who had accomplished great services and deeds for the immortal execution archipelago. People called the 9 of them the 9 immortals, and Ya Fei's grandfather was the head of the 9 immortals. It could be said that her grandfather's position in the immortal execution archipelago was under one person and above 10,000. Naturally, many people did not dare offend such a person. It was also the main reason why Ya Fei could be so arrogant and disdainful, without fearing others. Lady Ya Fei, it's a letter from Lord First Immortal. After organizing her emotions, the female, the rank 3 martial lord, once again spoke out with respect. Bam *, and upon hearing those words, the tightly shut door suddenly opened, and Ya Fei's beautiful body also appeared in front of the door. After seeing the letter in the female's hands, Ya Fei immediately took it away, tore it open, and started reading. The more she read, the more the fury on the face subsided. At the end, she went from angry to joyful, as her face brimmed with an incomparably dazzling smile. She put away the letter and said to the female, "Prepare well. Tonight my grandfather will come. But remember, do not let anyone know about this. This news must remain a secret." "Yes, ma'am." Hearing that the head of the 9 immortals was coming, the female's face instantly changed, and even her body couldn't help lightly trembling as she hurriedly excused herself and went to prepare for his arrival. The head of the 9 immortals was definitely a true important character in the immortal execution archipelago. In the entirety of the archipelago, other than the master, not a single person dared to be disrespectful to him. Even the currently flourishing young archipelago master had to face him with reverence and call him Senior First Immortal, let alone a little insignificant person like her. HMPH. This damn Taoist Chioshui. You're not afraid of my immortal execution archipelago, and not afraid of my grandfather, right? Let me see how haughty you can be when my grandfather appears in front of you tonight. At that instant, not only was there a bright smile on Ya Fei's face, there was even a hint of a sinister expression that yearned for what was to come. Chu Feng and the others did not know that Ya Fei's grandfather, Ya Zongyun, was coming to the everlasting sea of blood. At present, Chioshui Fuyan had already called Chu Feng to her resting residence and chatted with him alone. "Chu Feng, you said you're his disciple, but I cannot only trust your words. If you want to prove your identity, you must answer a few of my questions," asked Chioshui Fuyan with a soft but dignified voice as she sat on the middle seat in the living room. "Senior Chioshui, please ask," replied Chu Feng respectfully while he stood in the center of the living room. "Do you know my family and given name, and do you know your master's family and given name?" asked Chioshui Fuyan. "My master is called Huangfu Haoiwei. You are called Chioshui Fuyan. The two of you were originally lovers, and respectively the Holy Son and Holy Daughter of the Burning Heaven Church," replied Chu Feng. Hearing those words, Chioshui Fuyan instantly knitted her brows, a hint of a special emotion emerging into her eyes, and with a swish she stood up, came up to Chu Feng and asked very forcefully, "Where is he right now? Is he still well?" Chu Feng was a bit speechless as Chioshui Fuyan acted like that. He could see she was very worried about Huangfu Haoiwei and also missed him a lot. Their feelings were indeed not simple. "What? Is he not well? Where is he right now? Hurry up and tell me." Chioshui Fuyan grabbed Chu Feng's shoulders and continued asking. At that instant, he bit down on his teeth, and after readying himself, deciding to speak the truth, he deactivated his transformational mask, returning to his former young appearance, and said, "I am sorry, Senior Chioshui. Junior Chu Feng has lied to you." "A lie? What do you mean?" Seeing Chu Feng's change, Chioshui Fuyan frowned lightly and couldn't help taking a few steps back and re-evaluated the current Chu Feng. It was because even though Chu Feng at present still had the aura of a rank 1 martial lord, great changes occurred to his appearance. He seemed just like a young man. At his age, with his cultivation, it represented 3 words: extremely brilliant talent. But the thing Chioshui Fuyan was most alert of wasn't Chu Feng's cultivation or talent. It was why he had to lie to her. She was thinking exactly what intense Chu Feng was hiding, and how he knew about the matter between her and Huangfu Haoiwei. Senior Chioshui, although Huangfu Haoiwei and I aren't master and disciple, we still have an inseparable relationship, said Chu Feng. What relationship? You better reply honestly, or else I will take your life at any time, said Chioshui Fuyan fiercely. Her distrust in Chu Feng currently reached the extremities. This junior grew up in the continent of the 9 provinces, but I wasn't born in the continent of the 9 provinces. I do not know who my biological parents are, and I only know that Senior Huangfu brought me to the continent of the 9 provinces, said Chu Feng. What, you are? Hearing those words, Chioshui Fuyan's gaze changed once again, but that special gaze only flashed by. Then she asked fiercely again, what relationship you have with Huangfu Haoiwei is unrelated to me. Right now, you are posing as his disciple and coming to find me. What goal do you have? Senior, I want to know who my parents are, but right now I cannot find Senior Huangfu, so I could only come and find you to ask. After all, you had such a close relationship with Senior Huangfu before, so I've thought that you possibly knew of my ancestry, said Chu Feng. Then how did you know I was here? Huangfu Haoiwei told you, asked Chioshui Fuyan. No, it was another person. Who? Chio Sanfeng. What? It's him. Upon hearing Chio Sanfeng's name, a surprised expression emerged into Chioshui Fuyan's eyes. Afterwards she asked, what relationship do you have with Chio Sanfeng? From start to finish, Chu Feng kept on looking at Chioshui Fuyan's reactions. He discovered when he mentioned Chio Sanfeng, though she was shocked, there were no bad reactions. It could be seen that she did not dislike Chio Sanfeng, so Chu Feng said, without hiding anything, Chio Sanfeng is the one who's my master. You're Chio Sanfeng's disciple. Havoc, this is complete havoc. You were clearly brought to the 9 provinces by Huangfu Haoiwei, so how did you become Chio Sanfeng's disciple? Chioshui Fuyan was very confused. Senior, you do know about my ancestry. Please tell me. Hearing those words, Chu Feng quickly bowed with clasped hands. I don't know about your ancestry. I only know a few things about you. If you want me to tell you, that is fine, but before that, you must seriously answer a few of my questions. After that, Chioshui Fuyan asked Chu Feng about many things. Chu Feng didn't hide anything, and told her how Huangfu Haoiwei brought him to the Chu family, getting them to take care of Chu Feng, and also how he met Chio Sanfeng. However, Chu Feng also cleverly concealed a bit of the truth. Although he said how he met Chio Sanfeng, and how he took him as a disciple, Chu Feng didn't tell Chioshui Fuyan about him being in a bind. As for Huangfu Haoiwei going mad, naturally, Chu Feng didn't mention that. Most likely, the reason why Huangfu Haoiwei went mad was because of his father. And since Chioshui Fuyan and Huangfu Haoiwei were so close, if she knew Huangfu Haoiwei went insane because of him, then he couldn't be certain whether Chioshui Fuyan would attack him to avenge Huangfu Haoiwei. I knew the heavenly road was nothing simple, but the Pope didn't listen to my advices, and even Huangfu Haoiwei didn't believe me. Indeed, they encountered a great disaster in the heavenly road. After knowing everything, Chioshui Fuyan suddenly sighed, then looked at Chu Feng and said, I know that when the burning heaven church led the entire church to move into the holy land of martialism, yet were all annihilated. Only Huangfu Haoiwei himself was able to escape, and as he escaped, he even brought out a child, and that child was you. They were all annihilated on the heavenly road to the holy land of martialism. Senior Chioshui, what exactly happened? Could you tell me? At that instant, Chu Feng was elated. He picked up a few things. His ancestry was very possibly related to the holy land of martialism, as well as the heavenly road. No, I don't know much about your background, nor do I know what happened back then in the heavenly road. When Huang Fu Howiwei went to find me, he only left behind a sentence then left. It was "Do not enter the heavenly road," said Choshui Fu Yan. Only that one sentence. Senior Huang Fu didn't say anything else to you? Asked Chu Feng, unsatisfied. However, Choshui Fu Yan only shook her head and smiled. He had always never feared anything. Although he was the Holy Son, his strength had already surpassed the Pope. Is there anyone in the Eastern Sea region who could defeat him? But back then, when he saw me, his face was fraught with terror, as though he had taken a huge shock. I can't imagine what kind of thing, or what kind of event, was able to frighten him to that degree. However, I am sure that all the answers are in the heavenly road. I understand. Thank you, Senior, for your pointers. Chu Feng was no fool, so he understood the meaning behind Choshui Fu Yan's words. It was that regardless of what Huang Fu Howiwei meant, and exactly what Chu Feng's ancestry was, only by going into the heavenly road could they be revealed. Although Choshui Fu Yan wasn't really able to give Chu Feng an answer, she provided him with an extremely important clue. As Chu Feng speculated, Huang Fu Howiwei did indeed meet some sort of change in the heavenly road. His own ancestry most likely would be revealed in that place too. Okay, Chu Feng, it's no longer early, rest soon. Tomorrow morning we will depart, said Choshui Fu Yan. Senior, may I ask where we are heading towards tomorrow? Asked Chu Feng. Have you heard of the Misty Peak? Said Choshui Fu Yan. I have. Chu Feng nodded his head. Naturally, he'd heard of the Misty Peak. He knew that there was a preeminent hidden expert at the top of the Misty Peak called Lady Payao Mayao. Though the reason why Chu Feng heard of the Misty Peak wasn't because of Lady Payao Mayao. It was because of her 4 disciples. Not only were Lady Payao Mayao's 4 disciples cultivation geniuses, they were even 4 beauties with exceptional appearances. They were called Chunwu, Xia Yuqiuzhu, and Dong Shue. Not only did those 4 women have outstanding cultivation, they were even skilled in the 4 arts as well as in singing and dancing. They were the perfect females in the hearts of countless males, especially that Qiu Zhu, who was recognized as a beauty comparable to Ya Fei. She was praised as one of the 3 great beauties in the Eastern Sea region. It's good that you've heard of her. Lady Payao Mayao is my old friend. Moreover, she is very skilled in spirit formation techniques, and she also has a vast understanding regarding all sorts of peculiar monsters. I'm sure if it's her, she will be able to save your friend, said Choshui Fu Yan. Senior, I still have one thing I want to ask, said Chu Feng. Go ahead, said Choshui Fu Yan. I am not Senior Huang Fu's disciple, so it can be said that I'm not too related to you. Right now, you already know the truth. Why are you still helping me? Asked Chu Feng. Ho! After hearing Chu Feng's words, Choshui Fu Yan smiled, then said, putting aside helping you or not, your friend has been bound by a monster, so regardless, it's my duty to help her. Even if I don't have the layer of relationship, I wouldn't just stand on the side and do nothing. Besides, even though you're not Huang Fu Howiwei's disciple, you are Senior Chio Sanfeng's disciple. There is some friendship between him and I, so for his sake I should take care of you. I understand. Chu Feng clasped his hands, then left the room. But immediately after Chu Feng left, Choshui Fu Yan's expression suddenly changed. She first sighed, then looking in the direction Chu Feng left at, she murmured to herself. Back then, it was the first time I saw that type of fear in him. Although he didn't say what he feared, I could tell he feared 2 things. 1, he feared the heavenly road. 2, you and his embrace. The 2 of you are connected by thousands and thousands of strands of relation. One of those must affect his life, so for the sake of his safety, I should protect you safely. A soundproof spirit formation was laid in Choshui Fu Yan's room, so obviously, Chu Feng couldn't hear her mutters. But immediately after walking out of the palace Choshui Fu Yan lived in, Chu Feng saw a familiar figure. It was Jiang Wanshi. Senior Jiang, why are you here? Could it be that something happened? Chu Feng saw Jiang Wanshi's tense expression and determined that something might have happened. Junior Wuqing, this isn't good. Just now, I wanted to bring some sweets to little Fishy, but discovered that she wasn't in her room. Afterwards, I pretty much searched throughout the floating island, but I still couldn't find her. Currently, Chu Feng was already wearing the transformational mask and had returned to Wuqing's appearance. So Jiang Wanshi instantly recognized Chu Feng. Little Fishy has disappeared, asked Chu Feng calmly. Yeah, she is truly gone. I've already carefully looked all over the floating island, but I can't find her. Moreover, a spirit formation has already been laid by my master on this floating island. Logically, she shouldn't be able to leave. Yet I was unable to find her within the island. Where could she have went? Said Jiang Wanshi very anxiously. Crap. Hearing those words, Chu Feng's heart also involuntarily trembled. Although little Fishy was naturally naughty and had the ability to break open spirit formations, so she very possibly went out to play on her own. At present, they were in the everlasting sea of blood. Ya Fei was watching them like a tiger. So Chu Feng was very worried that little Fishy was taken away by Ya Fei. Although Chu Feng was worried, he still consoled Jiang Wanshi, saying, Senior Jiang, don't worry. Little Fishy has always been special, so spirit formations cannot stop her. Moreover, she is innately playful, so I'm guessing that she went out to have fun. But Ya Fei has always wanted to harm little Fishy. If she's taken away, then little Fishy will be dead. This won't do. We must go out to find little Fishy. Junior Wuqing, wait for me here. I will report this to my master now. As Jiang Wanshi spoke, she ran towards Chioshui Fuyan's palace, and after knowing that little Fishy disappeared, Chioshui Fuyan was very nervous too. Not only did she open the spirit formation, she even went out with Chu Feng and Jiang Wanshi, and also looked for little Fishy. However, the more they searched, the more uneasy Chu Feng felt. It was because the everlasting sea of blood was very large, and little Fishy's speed within water was very quick as well. He didn't know where she went to play. Really, he could not confirm if little Fishy was safe or not. Under such uneasiness, time passed by bit. The initially dark night turned bright, then was soon replaced by the night sky filled with starlight. Entering the nighttime, a strange beauty appeared in the everlasting sea of blood. Though when Chu Feng and the others were flying above the surface of the sea, they didn't have the heart to admire the scenery because they were worrying, as they could not find little Fishy. Coinciding with all these events, a person with powerful strength had arrived in the everlasting sea of blood. In the living room with Ya Fei, a white-haired, brawny old man who neared 3 meters in height and was clad in gorgeous clothing sat at the head of the table. That old man had eyes like an eagle's, snow-white sword-like brows, a pointed face, and unknowingly emanated an untaintable domineeringness. And that person was none other than the head of the 9 immortals of the Immortal Execution Archipelago, Ya Fei's grandfather, Ya Zongyun. 1. Respectively spring dance, summer rain, autumn bamboo, and winter snow. Grandfather, you're finally willing to see me. I even thought you'd forgotten about me. When she saw her grandfather, Ya Fei was very happy. In a cute manner, she leaped into Ya Zongyun's embrace. Ha, I only have one cute granddaughter, so how could I forget about you? I just came out of secluded cultivation. Before even seeing the archipelago master, I came to see you. Ya Zongyun laughed. His eyes were full of love. His doting and spoiling on Ya Fei was infamous. Grandfather, you've made a breakthrough. Hearing that her grandfather just came out of seclusion, Ya Fei widened her eyes, her face full of yearning. When has your grandfather ever failed in secluded cultivation? Ya Zongyun chuckled but gave Ya Fei a definite answer. That's great. Grandfather has made a breakthrough again. Grandfather, then with your current cultivation, are you able to be on par with the archipelago master? Knowing the answer, the smile on Ya Fei's face was even stronger. Her grandfather was her greatest backing. The stronger her grandfather became, the more unruly she could be. Foolish girl, How is the realm of the Archipelago Master something that I can compare to? But now, my position as the third strongest in the Immortal Execution Archipelago is definitely unshakable now. Ya Zongyun's face was full of smiles. It could be seen that he was also truly happy. As the proverbs say, one feels refreshed upon meeting joyous occasions, let alone a cultivation expert making a breakthrough. Third strongest, wasn't grandfather always the second strongest in the Immortal Execution Archipelago? Could it be that other than the Archipelago Master, there's a person even stronger than grandfather? Ya Fei lightly furrowed her brows. She seemed to not be too satisfied with that result. She also didn't feel that there was anyone, other than the Archipelago Master, who had the qualifications to stand above her prided grandfather. Silly girl, have you forgotten my Immortal Execution Archipelago's former master, the current Supreme Elder? Asked Ya Zongyun with a smile. Supreme Elder, you mean Murong Yun's grandfather? Hasn't he already reached his final days? Is he not dead yet? Ya Fei's face was full of shock because since she was young, she had seen the so-called Supreme Elder, but at that time, he was already like a dead person. Every day, he had to consume large amounts of precious medicine to prolong his life in order to continue surviving. So many days had passed, and she hadn't seen that Supreme Elder again, nor had anyone mentioned him. The current glory of the Immortal Execution Archipelago was all built up by the current Archipelago Master alone. So Ya Fei even thought that the Supreme Elder died. After all, he was already so feeble back then, not to mention that so many years had passed now. Ah, my child, don't say those words everywhere arbitrarily. The Supreme Elder has always been living well. Hearing her words, Ya Zongyun hurriedly reminded solemnly, Could it be that he has made a breakthrough again, so he obtained the chance to lengthen his life? Ya Fei thought of the only possibility. The Supreme Elder already made a breakthrough a long time ago. Right now, the old man is constantly in secluded cultivation, and he is already on a completely new path. If he can, once again, successfully break through, even if the head of the crippling night demon sect or that burning heaven church Huangfu Haoiwei were here, they would absolutely not be able to defeat the Supreme Elder. He will truly be invincible in this world, said Ya Zongyun. Grandfather, I've always heard you talk about the crippling night demon sect and the burning heaven church. Are those two powers that no longer exist truly that powerful? Asked Ya Fei curiously. Although when she was young, the crippling night demon sect and the burning heaven church were still there, she was really too young back then. All day, she cared only about playing and was completely ignorant to things such as the powers. Her grandfather and parents also never told her about those things, so she had never seen the glory of the crippling night demon sect and burning heaven church. Thinking back then, those two powers truly pressed my Immortal Execution Archipelago to the point we could not even breathe. But those days of suffering have already passed. As long as the Supreme Elder can successfully make a breakthrough, then even if the crippling night demon sect and the burning heaven church are still here, they will still be stepped upon by my Immortal Execution Archipelago, said Ya Zongyun very confidently. Then, grandfather, is there great hope for him to make a breakthrough? Asked Ya Fei excitedly. As a person of the Immortal Execution Archipelago, although she hoped even more that her grandfather would become stronger, she also hoped that the Immortal Execution Archipelago would become stronger. There is, of course, hope, but the further one is in the realm of martial kings, the harder it is to make breakthroughs. The Supreme Elder's rank is already in a very difficult to overcome bottleneck. Back then, the head of the crippling night demon sect and Huangfu Haoiwei, who shocked the world, also stopped on this realm. But right now, the Immortal Execution Archipelago is safely in control over the Eastern Sea region. As long as an ample amount of resources is collected, the chance that the Supreme Elder has to make a breakthrough is still very great, said Ya Zongyun. Grandfather, if the head of the crippling night demon sect and Huangfu Haoiwei were still here, do you think they would have broke past the realm you talked about just now? asked Ya Fei curiously. She had always heard her grandfather mention those two people, so Ya Fei knew in her heart that those two were definitely very powerful. Ya Zongyun found it very difficult to respond to that question. After all, the two of them staying in that realm was already something over 10 years ago. Judging by their talent, especially H. Wang Fu Haoiwei's talent, it was very hard to estimate what realm they would be in over 10 years later. He, at present, was only comparing the Supreme Elder's current cultivation with their former achievements. Actually, that kind of comparison was both lying to others and lying to himself. I'm guessing that the two of them would definitely be unable to break through as well. Besides, they are no longer here. Right now, my immortal execution archipelago is the strongest in this world. That is an undeniable fact. Back then, the crippling night demon sect and burning heaven church split the world in half. But now, my immortal execution archipelago monopolizes the world. Just on that point, they are inferior to my immortal execution archipelago, said Ya Fei smartly as she quickly giggled, upon seemingly noticing her grandfather put in a difficult situation. Ha, that's right. My Feier is correct. The current achievements that the immortal execution archipelago has isn't something that can be compared by the crippling night demon sect and burning heaven church. Hearing Ya Fei's words, Ya Zongyun also happily laughed loudly again. But sadly, no matter how much stronger my immortal execution archipelago is, there is always some people who think that they know it all and don't put the immortal execution archipelago in their eyes. Just at that moment, Ya Fei suddenly turned strangely downcast. Feier, what do you mean? Seeing that, Ya Zongyun's brows instantly slanted inwards, a hint of displeasure emerging into his eyes because he could tell that surely her obedient granddaughter was bullied by someone again. Grandfather, have you heard of Taoist Xianxia of the Lover's Terrace? Replied Ya Fei with a question. I do know of the Lover's Terrace. It's a place where a group of conceited trash live hiddenly in. As for that Taoist Xianxia, I have not heard of her. Ya Zongyun shook his head. HMPH is a nameless person. Grandfather, let me tell you. That person called Taoist Xianxia is so arrogant. Not only does she not put the immortal execution archipelago in her eyes, she doesn't even put grandfather in her eyes. Seeing that, Ya Fei hurried took the chance to aggravate the situation. Not only did she speak her grievances, she even added oil and vinegar, exaggerating Taoist Xianxia's arrogance. She wanted her grandfather to stand up and take revenge for her. However, after hearing Ya Fei's words, Ya Zongyun sank into contemplation. Only after a long while did he ask, Feier, you said that this Taoist Xianxia is a gold cloak world spiritist. Ya Fei nodded her head in confirmation. Does she wear a white skirt? Ya Zongyun continued asking. Grandfather, how did you know? Could it be that you know her? Ya Fei asked puzzledly. Feier, does that woman have an outstanding appearance? Although she nears the age of 40, does she still have a complexion and demeanor that is superior to others? Ya Zongyun continued asking. She used a veil to cover her face, so I couldn't see, but looking at her figure and the outline of her face, I could see that she was decently pretty. As for her demeanor, thinking about it and from your words, she truly did have some unordinary demeanor that seemed as if she left the mortal world. Ya Fei replied. Judging by that, it's likely her. After hearing Ya Fei's words, Ya Zongyun lightly nodded his head, a hint of an interested smile appearing as the corners of his mouth rose. Grandfather, who exactly is that Taoist Xianxia? At that instant, Ya Fei confirmed that her grandfather definitely knew who Taoist Xianxia was, else he wouldn't have acted like so. Thus, she was also very curious as to who she was. If my guess is correct, then this Taoist Xianxia is not a simple person at all. She should be the person who was called the #1 beauty in the Eastern Sea region back then, and at the same time, the holy daughter of the burning heaven church, Xianxia Fuyan. Ya Zongyun said, Holy daughter of the burning heaven church, Chioshi Fuyan. Grandfather, she wouldn't be right. Didn't you say that over 10 years ago, the Burning Heaven Church already led the entire church into the heavenly road and moved to the holy land of martialism? If so, how is it possible for Chioshi Fuyan, the holy daughter of the Burning Heaven Church, to appear in the Eastern Sea region? Ya Fei's face was full of shock. After all, Chioshi Fuyan's name was very well known in the Eastern Sea region. Even though the Burning Heaven Church had disappeared for many years, many people could not forget her great name. She was a symbol of an era, a lover that countless people had in their dreams. Then you probably don't know about this. Back then, when the Burning Heaven Church was moving, I had sent them off along with the Archipelago Master. At that time, I had carefully observed the people from the Burning Heaven Church. I discovered that all famous experts were there, but only the holy daughter Chioshi Fuyan hadn't shown herself. At that time, I felt that she possibly hadn't left with the Burning Heaven Church. And now, the Taoist Chioshi you spoke of, no matter age or characteristics, are very close to Chioshi Fuyan. So I determined that she is very likely Chioshi Fuyan, Ya Zongyun said. So that means she truly is Chioshi Fuyan. No wonder. No wonder she didn't even put the immortal execution archipelago in her eyes. As the holy daughter of the Burning Heaven Church, she does have such qualifications. Ya Fei sighed helplessly with a face of grievance. Silly girl, although the Burning Heaven Church is powerful, that was, after all, many years ago. Right now, the Burning Heaven Church exists no longer, and Chioshi Fuyan also doesn't have an enormous power protecting her. At most, she is an expert hidden away from the world. There is no need to fear her, Ya Zongyun said. But grandfather, Chioshi Fuyan is still the holy daughter of the Burning Heaven Church. She was already fairly strong back then, so now I'm sure she's even stronger. It's better for you not to provoke her, Ya Fei advised intentionally, though really she was goading her grandfather to make a move. Haha, my silly Feier, you truly overestimate that Chioshi Fuyan, the holy son of the Burning Heaven Church, Huangfu Haoiwei, is indeed powerful, but the holy daughter Chioshi Fuyan is far from strong. Back then she couldn't even beat me, your grandfather, let alone now. From what you've said, she's residing in the everlasting sea of blood currently. Quickly bring me there. If I don't give her a lesson, she truly will think that my precious granddaughter is fun to bully. Ya Zongyun said while patting his chest. As expected, he believed Ya Fei's words. That's great. I knew my grandfather is the most powerful one. Ya Fei happily skipped and jumped about. She was ecstatic. In front of her own grandfather, her arrogant attitude remained no more. She was like a child, even a bit cute. Asterisk bam asterisk. But just at that moment, the tightly shut door was suddenly pushed open by someone. A female servant, face fraught with panic, ran in and loudly said, "Lord First Immortal Lady Ya Fei, this isn't good." "Insolence. I'm talking with my grandfather, who allowed you to intrude without reporting in." Seeing her, Ya Fei became enraged, and as she pointed at the servant, she was going to hit her. Wait. However, before letting her act, she was stopped by her grandfather, Ya Zongyun. After stopping her, he gravely asked, "What urgent matter do you have? Say it directly." "Lord First Immortal Lady Ya Fei, there is an abnormality in the sky outside. Please come out and observe it," the female servant replied tensely. "What? Abnormality in the sky?" Hearing those words, Ya Zongyun's and Ya Fei's expressions changed slightly. Then Ya Zongyun grabbed Ya Fei. Then his body moved slightly and became a strand of light, arriving in the sky outside the palace. At that instant, they discovered above the many floating islands, quite a few people had risen to the sky and were gazing at the night sky with faces full of surprise. And when they raised their heads to see as well, even Ya Zongyun's and Ya Fei's faces changed greatly. Incomparable shock surged within their roundly widened eyes. It was because, at that very instant, in the sky full of stars, an abnormality truly appeared. It was unknown how far it was from them, but it was definitely above the rivers of stars in the 9 heavens where no one could reach. There, a tear appeared. Indeed, it was a tear. Even though the night surrounded it, one could still see that it was a tear. That tear was gradually enlarging as though the sky was ripped apart. Heavens, the sky has been torn. What is happening? Is this the apocalypse that the legends depict, and the sky will crash down upon us? Seeing the tear getting larger and larger, some people with weaker hearts started to yell this and that. Grandfather, what is happening? Could there be a divine body descending? It wasn't the first time Ya Fei had seen such a situation. From when she was young, she had seen an abnormality in the sky, and at that time there was a divine body that came into the Eastern Sea region. That divine body was Zai Ling. No, the phenomenon of the descent of a divine body always takes away one's eyes. It also represented the special divine power that they would grasp. But this time, the scene is different. It doesn't seem like the descent of a divine body. It seems more like some terrifying existence is forcefully tearing the sky asunder. Fayer, look carefully. Look at the shape of the tear. Doesn't it look like a person's using their hands to rend the sky apart? Ya Zongyun asked as he pointed at the night sky. After hearing her grandfather speak, Ya Fei looked in detail again at the sides of the endlessly enlarging tear in the sky. Though on the surface it seemed ordinary, indescribable terror instantly emerged onto her already shocked face. Even her body started lightly quivering. She then said with a very meek voice, "Grandfather, what is that?" In the bright night sky, suddenly there appeared a tear that looked as if a giant had ripped it open with its hands. That made people shocked, terrified, and very uneasy. It's because it was very, very high up in the sky. If that were truly a human act, how big of a body and how much power would they need to create such a tear? None of them dared to imagine such a situation, because the more they seriously thought about it, the more they felt their hair stand on end with endless fear. They subconsciously felt that it simply wasn't something that a human did, because it was impossible for humans to have such power. Even cultivators could not. Thus, everyone felt that it was either a demon or it was a god. However, they were more willing to believe that it was only an abnormality, a phenomenon, that it was completely unrelated to them. That scene was really too shocking, so much that it surpassed their bearable limits. They felt it wasn't something they could participate in, nor was it something they ever wanted to participate in. Every single person in the entire Eastern Sea region could see the tear in the sky, and almost everyone was stunned. Naturally, Chu Feng discovered it as well. But Chu Feng didn't have the heart to admire it, nor could he be bothered to guess what was happening, because at that instant, his mind was only thinking of one person, little fishy, Chu Feng. Suddenly, a voice rang out, and at the same time, a fairy-like beautiful figure appeared in front of Chu Feng, blocking his path. It was Chioshhui Fuyan. "Senior Chioshhui, have you seen little fishy?" Chu Feng asked concernedly. But Chioshhui Fuyan shook her head and said, "Chu Feng, continuing to search like this isn't the way to go. The Eastern Sea region is so vast, and little fishy's speed in water is also very quick. If she went out to play, she may not remain within the everlasting sea of blood. With your speed, how could you find her? So, it's better for you to return and wait there. If little fishy finishes playing and returns, at least there will be a person to bring her back to the floating island. But don't worry about her being caught by Ya Fei. You know little fishy's speed. Ya Fei definitely doesn't have the ability to catch her." After speaking, Chioshhui Fuyan also couldn't help raising her head and look at the sky. She lightly sighed. This night is truly unpeaceful. Afterwards, she leaped forward and like light, rushed towards the distance and disappeared. At the same time, she also spread out her spirit power, increasing her range of detection. Seeing that, Chu Feng knew Chioshhui Fuyan was continuing to look for little fishy. Thinking carefully, he felt that she was correct. If little fishy truly went out to play, to want to find her would truly be quite hard. But going out to play meant she would eventually come back. And if no one were waiting on the floating island when she came back, she would not be able to return onto the floating island. That would instead put her in danger. So, Chu Feng no longer blindly searched for her. He used a bodily martial skill and flew back to the floating island that they resided in. Junior Wuqing, have you seen little fishy? After returning to the floating island, Chu Feng discovered that xianxia had returned as well. Likely it was Chioshhui Fuyan who sent her back. Chu Feng shook his head and said, Senior Jiang, don't worry too much. I believe that little fishy will return soon. I will wait for her under the island. It will be fine if you wait on the island. That girl has many abilities, after all. Even I'm not sure if she will return flying in the air or not. If she does, she will definitely directly return to this island. At that time, Senior, just come down and tell me. Junior Wuqing is correct. Jiang Wanshi nodded. After that, Chu Feng said nothing more and leaped down from the floating island, landing above the blood-colored sea surface. Chu Feng stood above the sea, initially wanting to calm his heart and wait for little fishy. However, he was quite helpless as it was the center area of the everlasting sea of blood. Every person in the sea resided in that area, and because an abnormality appeared in the sky, shouts and sighs rang out everywhere, even frightened wails and cries. Affected by the rowdiness, Chu Feng too couldn't help looking at the night sky. Eggy, although this phenomenon is grandiose, even more so it is troubling. What exactly is it, do you know? Chu Feng carefully examined it and also discovered that it was overly peculiar. Faintly, it made people uneasy, so he did not feel that it was something made by the birth and descent of a divine body. Although I have seen a lot, I have always stayed in the Asura spirit world. The situation at present is also the first time I've seen it. Rather than you and me guessing, why not use the heaven's eyes and observe it? Eggy chuckled and did not directly answer his question. Hearing that without dawdling, Chu Feng used the heaven's eyes. Instantly, his gaze was like a sword, and when he looked back at the sky, his complexion changed greatly. With the heaven's eyes, he truly found a few problems. In an ordinary person's perspective, they only felt that the edges of the tear was similar to fingers pulling the tear open. So they felt that there was a person using their hands to rip open the sky. But with Chu Feng's heaven's eyes, he actually saw a faint image, though it was fairly indistinct, and one was even unable to determine if it were real or fake. That image was indeed a large hand piercing through and rending the sky. How has this happened? Seeing that, even Chu Feng couldn't remain calm and couldn't help being frightened. Regardless of how strong cultivators were, there was always a limit. Even though they could walk on air and pass through layers of white clouds, they could never touch the stars and the moon, let alone the space above the stars and moon. At that instant, there was truly a pair of hands that ripped the sky at that location. How could Chu Feng continue remaining collected? He still could not imagine exactly how big the huge hand was, and exactly what power it contained to be able to rip open the sky. However, Chu Feng was able to imagine the entirety of the incomparably vast Eastern Sea region, becoming completely wiped out by not the descent of the huge hand, but of the press of a single finger. Those two hands were too terrifying. So terrifying that they surpassed Chu Feng's range of comprehension. The owner of those hands must certainly be even more terrifying, and truly have might that could destroy the heavens and earth. At that instant, Chu Feng, who didn't believe in the existence of God for the first time, connected those hands with a word. God. Could they be the hands of God? That was the greatest question currently in Chu Feng's heart. Eggy, do you see it? Chu Feng hurriedly asked Eggy while frightened. As they shared vision and hearing, the things he saw Eggy could as well. Looking at this, it is likely not fake. At that instant, even Eggy's tone became strangely serious. Her former naughtiness existed no longer. Eggy, what do you mean? Don't tell me that the illusion in between the tear is real. Chu Feng became even more frightened upon obtaining Eggy's answer. If it's fortune, it will not be a disaster. If it's a disaster, it cannot be evaded. There's no use worrying about it when you can do nothing about it. I only hope that regardless of fortune or disaster, It will be unrelated to you." After those words, Eggy went silent and said no more, as though even the great queen who feared nothing was frightened as well. When even Eggy became solemn as if frightened, Chu Feng became more uneasy. He had always known of the principle, there's a man beyond a man, and a sky beyond a sky. But when he truly saw the unbelievable power from beyond the sky, Chu Feng involuntarily felt fear and anxiousness. If everything in the sky at present was real, then Chu Feng and the people from the Eastern Sea region, all the martial lords, martial kings, and even martial emperors were too minuscule, simply so minuscule that they were less than dust. Was the road of martial cultivation truly endless and limitless? Beyond the 9 heavens, was there truly some existence that had the divine power to rend the sky? Were the so-called martial cultivation masters and peerless experts in the Eastern Sea region, in their eyes, inferior to even dust, and were even less than fart? Yeah, big brother. But just when Chu Feng was submerged in that shock, a sweet and mellifluous voice rang out unendingly from the distance. Hearing that voice, Chu Feng's mood instantly exploded in elation. His worry and uneasiness before all disappeared like a whisper of smoke, and he quickly cast his gaze in the direction that the sound came from. Indeed, he saw a straight wave explosively shooting towards him from the surface of the sea, and at the end, a cute little person jumped out and appeared before Chu Feng. She immediately leaped into Chu Feng's embrace, and she was none other than Little Fishy. "Little Fishy, you finally returned." Seeing her, Chu Feng's tense heart finally relaxed. He didn't blame her at all, and what he had was only happiness and an eased heart. "Hee, big brother, were you worried about Little Fishy?" Little Fishy asked cleverly and naughtily as she blinked. "Of course I was worried. Little Fishy is big brother's angel. How could I not be worried when my angel's gone?" Chu Feng said gigglingly as he rubbed Little Fishy's jet-black hair. He truly liked that little girl so much he could not release her. "Heh, big brother, Little Fishy's got to go," Little Fishy said suddenly. "Go? Go where?" Upon hearing those words, Chu Feng couldn't help but be surprised. "Go to another place to play. Little Fishy has played enough here," Little Fishy said smilingly. "Then when will Little Fishy come back?" Chu Feng asked. "Come back? I think I want come back. Little Fishy won't come back to play in a place where she has played enough. Little Fishy wants to go to a better place to play," Little Fishy said. "Eh? Then Little Fishy, when are you prepared to leave?" Chu Feng asked. Right now, Little Fishy nodded her head firmly. For some reason, as he looked at the cute little girl in front of his eyes, he felt his heart ache. He would really miss Little Fishy. Though they were only together for a very short period of time, in his heart, Chu Feng liked that child, and he wanted to protect that child. However, Chu Feng could only think those thoughts because he also knew that he didn't have the strength to protect that child. So that was the reason why he didn't speak to ask for her to stay behind, and also didn't say he wanted to accompany her. Chu Feng actually knew already that Little Fishy was possibly only a passerby in his life. It was impossible for a special girl like her to always stay by his side. Besides, Chu Feng himself had many things to do. He had a heavy responsibility on him. He could not always bring a girl to experience sufferings with him. Even though Chu Feng knew they were going to separate eventually, he hadn't expected it to come so soon. "Big brother, Little Fishy has a present for you." She giggled, then spread open her hands. A necklace appeared on her fair and tender hands. When Chu Feng focused on it, he discovered that the necklace was truly interesting. It was a normal hemp rope tied around a small black-colored rock. Looking carefully, regardless if it was the rope or the rock, there were no special things about them. They were common objects. Not only were they common, the tying of the rope was even very rough. This was made by Little Fishy personally. "Does it look good?" Little Fishy asked proudly as she put the rock necklace on her cupped hands. "It does. I didn't expect my Little Fishy to be so adroit and could even make a necklace on her own." Although it was poorly made, after all, it was made by a 3-year-old child. Naturally, Chu Feng praised ceaselessly as he put on an appearance of extreme fondness. "Then big brother, you must always wear it. Don't lose it, or else little fishy will be mad. She stuffed the necklace into Chu Feng's hands. Little fishy needs to leave now, but Big Brother also has a present to give to you. The number of treasures Chu Feng had on him was countless, but at that instant, he meticulously picked out a beautiful footlace and personally tied it on little fishy's ankle. Not only was that footlace gorgeous, it was even an elite armament. It had the effect of automatically protecting its master. Yeah, the gift Big Brother gave to little fishy is so beautiful. Little fishy likes it a lot. Although she didn't know what elite armaments were, she currently skipped and jumped about in extreme happiness. Then she leaped into the water and merrily swam around Chu Feng. Big Brother Little Fishy will leave now. However, after some unknown number of laps of swimming, Little Fishy finally stopped and said her farewells to Chu Feng. Little Fishy, goodbye. Big Brother will miss you. Chu Feng didn't hold her back. He stood on the sea surface, enduring longing, and waved his hand at Little Fishy, who was in the sea with a smile. Little Fishy will also miss you. Big Brother, goodbye. Little Fishy flashed a dazzling smile as she blinked, then turned around and like a mermaid swam away. With cheerful sounds of yeah, she disappeared from Chu Feng's line of sight. He looked in the direction of Little Fishy's departure. Only after a while did Chu Feng smile relievedly. He spread open his hands and once again looked at the necklace Little Fishy gave him. Then he put it over his neck and buried the rock under his clothes. This scene runs through the horizon. It may not be related to the Eastern Sea region. Even if it related to this place, it may not be a bad thing. So, Fair, there is no need for you to be afraid. Simultaneously, in the centermost region of the everlasting sea of blood, as Ya Zongyun gazed at the abnormality, he consoled her granddaughter. Although Ya Fei was indeed frightened by the tear, after a while of soothing, the fear gradually vanished, especially as the abnormality remained for much longer, yet there was nothing out of the ordinary there. She was even more at ease. So she said to Ya Zongyun, "Grandfather, since this phenomenon has appeared for such a long time yet nothing has happened, there is no need for us to continue observing. Right now, let's go and take care of that Taoist Xianxia first, in case she gets hold of news and knows that you've come to the everlasting sea of blood, then furtively escapes." Fair is right. No matter what this abnormality is foretelling, it's not something that we have control over. Let us first pay a visit to the Holy Daughter, a person that I haven't seen in a long time. Ya Zongyun also nodded with a smile. In order to show his strength and majesty, he even brought a group of immortal execution archipelago experts and went forth together to the Xianxia Fuyan's residence. After deciding, Ya Zongyun brought Ya Fei and Ya Fei's 100 servants, as well as the experts guarding the immortal execution archipelago in the everlasting sea of blood, and went forward to Taoist Xianxia's residence. Ya Zongyun and Ya Fei didn't say why they were going to search for Taoist Xianxia, but the immortal execution archipelago crowd still looked forward to seeing the might of the head of the 9 immortals. After all, that old man was the second strongest person in the immortal execution archipelago. As for Ya Fei, her face was full of complacency. She, who had to bear Xianxia Fuyan's anger, already had a chance for revenge so soon. She truly couldn't wait to see Xianxia Fuyan's fearful reaction. Boom rumble 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 however, just as they started moving, and before they arrived at the floating island Xianxia Fuyan was residing in, an explosion suddenly came from the night sky. Raising their heads and looking, everyone's faces lost all color. Their faces were overwhelmed with shock, and within their roundly widened eyes was nothing but fear. At that instant, many people lacking in mental fortitude already started screaming. Some even loudly bailed. At that very instant, above the 9 heavens, within the enormous tier, an illusory huge hand that covered the sky came slamming down from above. The hand occasionally appeared and disappeared. Symbols swirled all around it, making it difficult to determine what exactly that hand was. However, something undeniable was that everyone felt a horrifying aura that could destroy everything originating from the huge hand. Asterisk rumble 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 asterisk. In the instant the huge hand came down, everyone could clearly see the space collapsing inch by inch. One after another, stars were destroyed, and coincident with the destruction of the stars, a sky full of meteors started to come crashing down. At that moment the sky had crumbled. One could no longer see the sun, moon, or stars. They could only see the fragments of space. But even so, the earth hadn't entered endless darkness. Instead, it became even brighter. The reason it was like so was because of the sky full of meteors. There were countless of them, and every single one had at least the volume of a continent. Every single one was lit with raging infernos, and it was exactly the raging infernos that lit up the earth. It brightened it to a fiery red from its pitch blackness, and brightened the blood-red everlasting sea of blood to as blinding as magma. The always calm everlasting sea of blood was no longer calm at present. It was bubbling like lava. Run! The apocalypse has truly arrived. Everybody run! Seeing that, everyone was petrified. They didn't even have time to think about other things, and the first reaction they had was to escape. Escape, but putting aside the gradually descending illusory huge hand that covered the entirety of the sky. Just the meteors that were ubiquitous already covered the entire Eastern Sea region. Where could they escape to? Grandfather, what do we do? Ya Fei had already lost her heart of revenge quite a while ago. She, who was usually arrogant, currently also had a face as pale as paper, an effect of her being terrified. Even her body was trembling slightly, and like a child she stayed in her grandfather's embrace, not daring to move at all. Fair, don't be afraid. With grandfather here, even if I have given up my final breath, I will definitely keep you safe. With one hand, Ya Zongyun tightly hugged Ya Fei, and at the same time with the other laid a golden spirit formation. The golden spirit formation did not veil over everyone who was there. It veiled over only himself and Ya Fei, regardless of how the others from the immortal execution archipelago begged. He was not willing to let anyone in. The reason he did that was because he didn't want to disperse more of his power to protect others. In that instant, he only wanted to protect himself and his granddaughter. Thus, even though the spirit formation Ya Zongyun currently laid didn't have too big of an area, it was formed with the entirety of his spirit power. It almost exhausted all of his martial power, because in that situation, he really didn't dare to hold anything back. Finally, with his full power, he successfully made a small golden tower less than 5 meters tall and 2 meters wide. Although the tower wasn't very big, it contained extremely strong spirit formation power. It was the strongest defense formation Ya Zongyun had. Asterisk boom rumble rumble asterisk. But just as the formation was successfully created, noise even more deafening than thunder rang out from the distance. At the same time, the air started to quiver, and the everlasting sea of blood below was like an exploded pot. Water started to surge into the sky, and everything was in chaos. Asterisk boom, 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 boom. Boom asterisk afterwards, the explosions endlessly rang out, and the sounds came closer and closer. Ya Fei and Ya Zongyun were then able to see clearly that it was the meteors in the sky that were falling. It was the meteors that were making the explosions. Dragging behind a tail of flame, they descended from above. After crashing into the ground, they would burst open and become extremely ferocious shock waves, pushing outward ripples in a circular shape. The ripples would then be unstoppable as they passed through areas and destroyed anything that existed. Regardless of what it was, it would be killed by the ripples. Finally, a meteor crashed into the everlasting sea of blood. Instantly, the sea boiled and burst out water like a volcano erupting. And when the shock waves swept past, other than Ya Fei and Ya Zongyun in the spirit formation, everyone else became ashes. No remains remained, dying extremely thoroughly. But even though the spirit formation stopped one shock wave that slammed past, cracks appeared and its power greatly diminished. How is this happening? Why is this happening? My immortal execution archipelago has just risen in power, and the Eastern Sea region is already peaceful. Gods, why must you treat us like so? Have we done something wrong? Ya Zongyun looked at the sky and howled in quite a bit of confusion at the illusory huge hand that stopped in the air and enveloped the sky. At that instant, he, who usually thought highly of himself, no longer had any traces of such an attitude, and he completely changed because he discovered even though he was the head of the 9 immortals that everyone respected in the Eastern Sea region, a martial cultivation master, when he faced a true disaster, he was so powerless, he didn't even have any strength to fight back. Grandfather, this isn't good. But just at that moment, Ya Fei's incomparably terrified voice suddenly rang out. When he turned his head and looked, Ya Zongyun's face changed greatly too because a super-huge meteor, with completely devastating power, was heading straight in their direction. Its speed was quick, and its area larger almost covered that portion of the everlasting sea of blood. They simply couldn't evade. Asterisk boom asterisk finally, a deafening explosion rang out, and at that instant, Ya Zongyun and Ya Fei felt their eyes go dark. All awareness vanished and they went unconscious. Only after some unknown length of time did Ya Fei gradually open her eyes. But after she did, she discovered that the world from her impressions completely changed. The sky was blood-red and full of cracks. The earth was blood-red and full of surging magma. In between the sky and the earth, there was not a single trace of life. It was terrifyingly desolate. Could it be that I've already died? Was Ya Fei's first thought. After experiencing everything that happened, she didn't feel that she was able to survive. That is, however, suddenly, Ya Fei's pupils suddenly shrunk, then she hurriedly flew downwards, because within the flowing magma which released a scathing heat, she saw a person, her grandfather, Ya Zongyun. Grandfather. Seeing her grandfather, Ya Fei was both surprised and joyed, and she hurriedly raised him up from the bubbling magma. Only then did she discover that her grandfather, whom she had great pride in, was extremely weakened. However, after her examination, she discovered that her grandfather still had a pulse and heartbeat. He hadn't died yet. Why is it like this? Have we not died yet? After discovering her grandfather's anomaly, Ya Fei also examined herself. She found out that her pulse and heartbeat were very stable. These were the special characteristics of life that did not correspond to someone who was dead. After all, she knew that dead people had no heartbeat nor pulse, and that the soul was actually just one's consciousness. After humans died, it was tantamount to their consciousness entering a different world, a very terrifying world. However, since her heart still beat, it meant that she had yet to die. Cough, cough, Fei, are you all right? Just at that moment, Ya Zongyun intensely coughed a few times. He actually awoke, and the first thing he did after awaking was to carefully examine his granddaughter. He was quite afraid that his granddaughter, whom he doted on, had any injuries. Grandfather, Fei is fine. How are you? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Seeing her grandfather awaken, Ya Fei rejoiced and rushed into Ya Zongyun's embrace, wailing sorrowfully. Silly Fei, don't cry. Grandfather is perfectly fine. It's just that the spirit formation I laid before was a taboo formation, so I lost too much strength. Ya Zongyun explained. That means grandfather isn't injured? Ya Fei asked. Ya Zongyun nodded with a light smile, and after hearing Ya Zongyun's words, Ya Fei was even happier. Although at present the sky was falling and the ground was crumbling, and the world looked nothing like before, not much had happened to her and her grandfather, and they survived. It was fortune within misfortune. Who is it? However, just at that moment, Ya Zongyun's eyes lit up and he put Ya Fei behind him as he loudly yelled in front of him. Seeing that, Ya Fei also quickly cast her gaze in the direction Ya Zongyun shouted angrily at. Only then did she discover that several hundred meters away from them, out of the blue, there appeared a vast stretch of white mist. That mist was not present before. At that instant, Ya Fei's anxiousness reached its peak because when she examined the mist, she simply couldn't detect anything. Yet at that very instant from the mist, there came sharp and clear footstep sounds. Asterisk ta 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 ta. Asterisk those sound of footsteps arose one after another and came closer and closer. Not only Ya Fei, even Ya Zongyun tightly furrowed his brows. His eyes glittered unstably, and even his heart formed a lump at his throat. They, who personally experienced the disaster, experienced the strength and terror of the huge hand in the sky. In a time like this, they could not determine exactly what thing was approaching them. Asterisk whoosh asterisk as the two were tightly staring. The mist finally dispersed and simultaneously, a person appeared in Ya Fei's and Ya Zongyun's line of sight. Upon seeing that person, no matter if it was Ya Zongyun or Ya Fei, both of them were dumbstruck, their faces full of surprise. At that very moment, the one who came forward in the air and gradually nearing them was a young woman. She had jet black hair that scattered behind her, as well as long brows, beautiful big eyes, tall nose, small cherry-like lips, and a youthful complexion. She simply reached the limits of beauty and definitely surpassed Ya Fei's, especially her pure and charming demeanor. It was something that Ya Fei couldn't even compare to. She was simply like a fairy from the heavens nearing perfection. Not only did the young female have a fairy-like prettiness, her figure was also extremely good. Of her snow-white exterior, there was a faint rosiness, and her skin was also very glossy like jade. Though the thing that made Ya Fei and Ya Zongyun shocked wasn't her fairy-like appearance, it was the revealing clothes she wore. She had such a beautiful appearance, such an alluring figure, but she wore extremely little. She was clad in only undergarments. Indeed, it was a pink bodice. One undergarment aka bodice. It was worn in front of her chest, and even though it concealed all the private areas, a large area of snow-white skin was still shown, especially her straight and slender legs. It was pretty much revealed completely in front of their eyes. However, other than the pink undergarment, the exceptionally beautiful young female also had another ornament. There was a beautiful footlace tied around her anklet, was an elite armament. You are. At that instant, Ya Fei was thoroughly stupefied because she recognized the pink undergarment. It was so familiar to her, the exact same as the one the special girl wore in the everlasting sea of blood. So Ya Fei made a bold guess. The person that appeared in front of her eyes very possibly was the little girl who she wanted to catch even in her dreams, little Fishy. Feier, you recognize her. Ya Zongyun had never seen little Fishy before, but he could see that his granddaughter possibly knew the mysterious young beauty. The young woman did not have too great of a reaction, as she gazed upon their stunned and fearful expressions. When there were still 100 meters between her and the two of them, she stopped. Why you are little Fishy? She questioned finally, with a tone of disbelief. Asterisk, however, just at that moment, little Fishy's clear eyes faintly shifted. Boundless pressure then came slamming from above, causing Ya Fei and Ya Zongyun to kneel in the air with a poof. The strong power even made the air they kneeled on crack. At that instant, Ya Fei and Ya Zongyun felt their heads bearing irresistible power. Even breathing was a very hard task, as though they could die at any given moment. Their faces were also fraught with agony. However, there was not a single trace of sympathy from her as she looked at their painful states. She first disdainfully looked at the two, then said with an absolute ordering tone, "Listen up. Do not attack Wu Qing, and do not do anything detrimental to Wu Qing. Otherwise, the ones who will die will definitely not only be the two of you, but the entire Eastern Sea region." After speaking those words, a large area of white mist emerged around her again, and very soon it veiled over her outstandingly beautiful body. Then she disappeared. Moreover, the mist was rapidly dispersing. It covered Ya Fei's and Ya Zongyun's line of sight, and at the same time, the unbearable power also faded like the clouds. Ya Fei and Ya Zongyun hadn't recovered from the previously dangerous scene before they suddenly heard endlessly familiar voices. Lord First Immortal, Lady Ya-Fei, Lady Ya-Fei. Those voices were so familiar. They were the voices of Ya-Fei's servants and the immortal execution archipelago experts. And along with the ringing of the voices, the mist surrounding them also began to slowly disintegrate. Then when the mist thoroughly disappeared, the two of them who experienced such a horrifying scene changed their faces greatly. At that instant, the first things to enter Ya Fei's and Ya Zongyun's eyes were Ya Fei's 100 female servants, as well as the group of people from the immortal execution archipelago. All of them had faces rife with shock, and with their roundly widened eyes in confusion and fear, they closely stared at Ya Fei and Ya Zongyun. Looking around them, the two discovered that the everlasting sea of blood was as serene as usual. All of the floating islands were still undamaged, and upon raising their heads, gazing at the sky once more, despite the tears still being there, the sky full of stars were there as well. Yet when they gazed at themselves, their bodies were actually wet. It was the smell of seawater. They seemed to have fell into the everlasting sea of blood below, and other than the seawater soaking their bodies, there was even cold sweat, Ya Fei especially. At that instant, she was still unable to control her quivering body. What exactly is going on here? What happened? Ya Zongyun asked a person by his side when he saw the peculiar situation. Lord First Immortal, this. The person who was asked had a face full of panic. There seemed to be some sort of unspeakable thing as she did not dare to say anything. Speak the truth, Ya Zongyun forcefully asked. Lord First Immortal, before, we were following you and Lady Ya Fei, but suddenly, both of you looked at the sky with faces full of fear. Lady Ya Fei even shrieked and leaped into your embrace. Afterwards, you, Lord First Immortal, laid an extremely blinding spirit formation in the same place you stood. The formation was extremely powerful, simply something that this servant has never seen before. But soon, you released the spirit formation and jumped into the everlasting sea of blood below. Seeing you enter the sea, Lady Ya Fei also quickly followed and brought you up. Your conversation with her afterwards was something that we couldn't understand. The person replied seriously. At that instant, Ya Fei and Ya Zongyun looked at each other, 4 eyes opposite to one another. Then they looked at the crowd. Seeing that everyone nodded in agreement that the person's words were truthful, both of them couldn't help furrowing their brows tightly, then sighed and said at the same time, could it be everything that just happened was only my imagination? Look, the tear is closing. Suddenly, from the distance came a loud shout. Raising their heads to look, they indeed discovered that the tear appearing above the 9 heavens was slowly closing. Grandfather, what do we do? Ya Fei currently didn't know what to do, so she could only ask her grandfather for help. Ya Zongyun first wiped the cold sweat on Ya Fei's face, then patted her shoulder and sent a mental message, saying, Feier, first tell me what that little fishy is all about. Ya Fei didn't dare to conceal anything. She simply and directly told Ya Zongyun about little fishy and Chu Feng. Of course, she also told him about the conflicts that happened between them. After knowing about the things that happened, Ya Zongyun's complexion turned strangely grave. Then he asked, Feier, do you think everything that happened was real? Being there personally, it's so real that it cannot be more real. Ya Fei nodded her head. In reality, even now she could not confirm whether it was just her imagination just now, or it truly happened. Not to mention you, even I, as a gold cloak world spiritist, could not feel anything being in that illusion. That already says how powerful the person who used the illusion on us is. Don't provoke that Wuqing anymore, and even more so, don't provoke that little fishy. Everybody who is related to them cannot be provoked. Ya Zongyun said, Grandfather, could everything that happened just be some false might and fakery? Must they be let off because you and I were in the illusion? Ya Fei was still a bit bitter. Idiot girl, you are still too young and lack an understanding of the situation's severity. The illusion just now was not some false might. If the person were willing to, we would have died already. Ya Zongyun said lightly through mental messaging. Gulp after hearing those words, Ya Fei couldn't help gulping and once again, broke out in a cold sweat. If even her grandfather was like that, it meant little Fishy was truly not a simple person. At least the person who made a move on her grandfather and herself was not simple at all. In a situation like that, no matter how much unwilling Ya Fei was, she still feared in her heart. She had no choice but to give up finding Chu Feng, Taoist Chioshui, and the others for revenge. Afterwards, Ya Zongyun commanded the people who were there to not tell anyone about them losing control of themselves. And they, who already feared Ya Fei and Ya Zongyun, naturally dared not to reveal anything. Just like that, the aggressive group of people, who initially planned to find Taoist Chioshui and Chu Feng for a debt, were forced to return in low spirits before they had even walked far. Even though it was quite embarrassing to do so, Ya Fei and Ya Zongyun had no other choice. It didn't matter much for Ya Fei. After all, she was still a martial lord. However, as a martial king, even Ya Zongyun felt the pressure from before. He knew there was an existence that he could not offend. As he could do nothing, Ya Zongyun couldn't help but raise his head and look at the sky. He looked at the gradually closing tier above and knitted his brows tightly. He kept on feeling that the tier seemed to have some sort of relation with the things that he met today. However, he did not dare to continue thinking beyond that point. He did not dare to imagine what consequences there would be if he offended people related to the tier in the sky. Perhaps the entire Eastern Sea region would truly be eradicated because of him. At the same time, Chu Feng had returned to the floating island, and after telling Jiang Wanshur about little Fishy leaving, he returned to his room to rest. He did not continue observing the tier in the sky, because he was no longer in the mood to. After little Fishy left, for some reason Chu Feng felt a bit downcast. Besides, Chu Feng also knew that even if the tier in the sky truly brought along something, it wasn't something that he could evade. So he just looked away from it, so his heart was not troubled. Just like that, as usual, the lengthy black night was finally replaced by the day again. As for the tier in the sky, it had already closed off completely before daylight and vanished within the night. Although it closed, there was nothing aberrant that happened in the everlasting sea of blood. But people were still awaiting news, because they did not believe that such an anomaly would bring no abnormal things. Thus, everyone was waiting for the arrival of shocking news and expecting a good show. However, just as many people put forth their expectations and yearned for news related to the strange phenomenon last night, Chu Feng and the others had already left the everlasting sea of blood and went forward to a place called the Misty Peaks. But at the same time, in the deepest parts of the everlasting sea of blood, there was a person speedily rushing about like light. Finally, he stopped, and if one neared, they would see that it was the blind old man who Chu Feng met just as he entered the everlasting sea of blood. At present, the old man held in his hand an object wrapped by black cloth. After tightly clenching the object, an expression of incomparable panic surged upon his face, saying with a soundless wail, "How has this happened? Why can't I feel the slightest bit of aura? It disappeared. It's not in the everlasting sea of blood. Where exactly did it go? Where did it go?" After a while of hurrying, Chu Feng and the others finally arrived into the land from the everlasting sea of blood. However, just as they walked out of the ancient teleportation array and entered the land, they suddenly discovered vast black clouds appearing above the distant sea surface. The black clouds covered a very broad area. It veiled over a small part of the world, and within the black clouds, sounds of thunder rang out without end. Moreover, they were very odd. The first feeling they gave people would be uneasiness, as though there were some ominous things within. Boom! Suddenly, an explosion that shook the world burst out from the boundless black clouds. A golden shock wave appeared, and it swept through the horizon, shattering the air, and a few black clouds were also forcibly dispersed. However, the black clouds were really too vast, and soon they covered the sky again. Boom! However, shortly afterwards, another explosion rang out. An even stronger shock wave emerged, but like before, it quickly became engulfed by the black clouds. It happened again and again, unceasingly, Explosions and shock waves came from the black clouds, and it even started to make extremely frightening shrieks. That sound did not seem like a normal wild beast's. It was extremely strange. Those who heard it felt inexplicably terrified as chills went down their spines. Heavens, what is happening over there? Such horrifying clouds and such terrifying shrieks. Outside the teleportation array there stood a few people. Naturally, such things also attracted their attention. There are definitely people intensely fighting within the black clouds, and their cultivations are very strong too. Chu Feng was also observing that, judging by the distance from the clouds and here, in addition with the shock wave's curvature and reflection of light, the person who attacked was at least an existence of a martial king. Wan Shi, bring Wu Qing to the first. Qioshui Fuyan suddenly said to Jiang Wanshi in a grave tone, although she knew of Chu Feng's real name, after he was disguised, as well as in public circumstances. She would still call Chu Feng Wu Qing in order to help him conceal his identity. Whoosh after speaking. Qioshui Fuyan waved her robe, rising into the air after becoming a rainbow. Her speed was quick and attracted endlessly exclamation from the bystanders. They all determined that Qioshui Fuyan was an unrivaled expert, and in the gaze they looked at Chu Feng and Jiang Wanshi with also became very reverent. Both of them couldn't even bother with such changes and stopped looking. They then flew in the direction of the. After Qioshui Fuyan left, Chu Feng actually didn't need to be that restrained and became affable. All of that was because of Qioshui Fuyan's excessive seriousness, as well as her powerful strength. Chu Feng knew a person like that liked peacefulness. So their journey, for the sake of Qioshui Fuyan's feelings, he held himself back a bit. Junior Wu Qing, you seem to be a bit afraid of my master. Jiang Wanshi asked with a smile when she saw Chu Feng's change. Not afraid, just respect. Chu Feng smiled back, but it was the words of his heart. Junior Wu Qing is quite smart. You've seen through my master's temper already. She does indeed dislike rowdiness and prefers silence. However, even though she is a bit strict normally, she has a very kind nature and treats others very well too, Jiang Wanshi said with a smile. Of course. Senior Qioshui is a kind person, or else she wouldn't have helped me in Yan Ruyu. For example, the black clouds that we just saw. It is clearly not related to us, but Senior Qioshui went there to investigate. The reason is because she wants to remove an unnecessary disaster, Chu Feng said. Junior Wu Qing, do you feel that something is wrong with the black clouds just now? Jiang Wanshi asked with a smile. There is something very wrong about the black clouds. They seem a bit strange, and there must be great peril within, Chu Feng said. Junior Wu Qing truly has great eyesight. It is an evil cloud, and there is definitely a demon inside, Jiang Wanshi said. Demon? Hearing that, Chu Feng couldn't help being taken aback slightly, then praised. Senior Jiang is the one who has great eyesight. You've actually analyzed it so in depth. Though, I wonder how you saw there was a demon inside, and what thing is this demon you talked about? You jest, Junior Wu Qing. How could I have such powerful eyesight? It's only because I've accompanied Master many times to the so I've seen this situation before. Anytime we see it, Master always goes out. Afterwards, I did ask her once. She told me that the is a land of immortals. It can be called the most special place in the Eastern Sea region. However, it is also the strangest place, as a monster often appear. Although when the monster appears, it will not leave the land of the. They must still be quickly eradicated, or else it would harm the innocent who come to the. As for what monster it is, I do not know, Jiang Wanshi said. It's actually that strange. No wonder I felt the black clouds to be so odd. They had an unspeakable feeling. Chu Feng was very shocked. After arriving in the Eastern Sea region, he experienced many things he had never heard of before, so he had really broadened his horizons. Actually there is a demon ambush map. As long as the demon appears, the map will have an indication. So if I'm not mistaken, The one fighting in the black clouds just now should be the master of the Senior Payao Mayao. My master is heading over there only because she wants to lend her an arm. Jiang Wanshi continued saying, I've heard that Lady Payao Mayao is the #1 hidden expert in the Eastern Sea region. I wonder if that rumor is true or false. Is there truly a hidden expert that possesses a cultivation above Senior Chiosh's? Chu Feng asked with a smile. Before, he felt that the person fighting within the black clouds was very strong, and from Jiang Wanshi's words, he could hear that the Lady Payao Mayao seemed to be more powerful than Chioshi Fuyan. So Chu Feng really wanted to confirm. Of course, Senior Payao Mayao is stronger. He is titled as the strangest land in the Eastern Sea region. It contains limitless good things, and the immortal Execution Archipelago have had their eyes locked on it for a long time. But the reason why they didn't dare to occupy it is only because they fear a single person. Jiang Wanshi said. It's Lady Payao Mayao, Chu Feng asked. Exactly, Jiang Wanshi replied. I didn't expect Lady Payao Mayao to reach this degree of strength. Even the immortal Execution Archipelago fear her. Chu Feng felt stunned. Although he hadn't been in the Eastern Sea region for a long time, he had already more or less seen how powerful it was. One had to know that the enormous power, the immortal Execution Archipelago, was indeed like the sun in the sky at present. Yet Lady Payao Mayao was able to make the immortal Execution Archipelago afraid. From that, it could be seen how impressive of an existence she was. But of course, Senior Payao Mayao is the chosen guardian of her cultivation talent is extremely high, and I've heard my master say that Senior Payao Mayao nears 1,000 years of age, though she is still healthy right now, and there is no problem for her to live several hundred more years. Jiang Wanshi said furtively, as though it was a secret. She has really lived that long. What cultivation does she have? After hearing those words, Chu Feng again was shocked. A person living almost 1,000 years and could continue living for several hundred years more. Wasn't that person's cultivation extremely high? Otherwise, how could she have obtained such a long life? No. However, Jiang Wanshi shook her head to Chu Feng's question, then said, Senior Payao Mayao's cultivation is high, that's indisputable, but it isn't so high that she could obtain such a long life through cultivation. The reason she can, however, is all because of the Junior Wuqing, like I said, is the strangest land in the Eastern Sea region, and it is called the Land of Immortals. You must know that the word immortals isn't spoken casually. The Misty Peak truly seems very special. Senior Jiang, please explain them so this junior can have a better understanding. Hearing to that point, Chu Feng had a complete new comprehension of the Misty Peak. Before, he even thought that the Misty Peak was only an ordinary peak, and it was only famous because hidden experts lived here, along with one of the great beauties of the Eastern Sea region, Quzhou. But looking at it now, it seemed completely different. Chu Feng also knew that there were reasons why special places were special. Therefore, he felt that if the Misty Peak was truly as Jiang Wanshi said, then it was very likely that it concealed great possibilities. Actually, I don't understand this place too much, and I only heard my master say a few things about it. As for its origin, no one knows exactly. They only know that there are many special things in this place, and it can even prolong one's life. So that's why it's called the strangest land in the Eastern Sea region. According to my master, the Misty Peak is actually more like a super huge ceiling formation. Closed within is a demon that people lack comprehension over. It is unknown who sealed the demon there, but occasionally it shoots out some phantoms to make trouble. The demon's phantoms are the black clouds we saw before. Although they are only phantoms, and they cannot leave the land of the Misty Peak, if we ignore them, it's likely that it will completely unseal the monster. So the Misty Peak requires a guardian responsible to eradicate the demons that are born at any time. This guardian is said to be chosen by the Misty Peak itself, and only females can hold the position. Right now, the guardian is Senior Payao Mayao, and I'm sure the future guardian will be birthed from one of the 4 seniors," Xianxia explained. "It's actually that mystical." "Then who's the first guardian of the Misty Peak?" Chu Feng asked. "Junior Wuqing, you want to ask who the first owner of this Misty Peak is, right?" Jiang Wanshi smiled. Chu Feng scratched his head when Jiang Wanshi saw through his intentions and said with a smile, "Hey, yeah." Hearing Senior Jiang's words, "Even though I haven't seen the Misty Peak yet, I already feel that place is impressive. If it is truly as Senior Jiang says, that the Misty Peak is, in reality, a huge ceiling formation, then I'm sure that the owner of this place must be an extremely outstanding existence. Otherwise, how could they have such a great handiwork? If I don't know the grand name of such a person, it would truly be a type of regret." At that instant, Jiang Wanshi shook her head and said, "The Misty Peak has existed for many generations, and no one knows who the first owner is. However, from what I've heard, on the Misty Peak there are some murals engraved, and looking from some of the markings and symbols in the formation, the Misty Peak should have come from the ancient era." Ancient era. That means this Misty Peak is truly mysterious. More and more I want to see what exactly it looks like. After hearing those words, yearning surged in Chu Feng's eyes. "Don't worry, the Misty Peak will absolutely not disappoint you." Jiang Wanshi smiled very confidently. After more quick journeying, Chu Feng discovered that they entered a vast and endless region of sea once again. Thinking back when Jiang Wanshi said the Misty Peak was not too far away, Chu Feng couldn't help thinking that it very possibly was a beautiful island. However, Chu Feng soon found out that he was wrong because the thing that finally appeared in front of him was an enormous area of white clouds. The area of the white clouds was huge, and its shape was very beautiful, as though it were formed by countless supersized cotton candy blankets. It would even be reasonable to say it was the most beautiful white cloud he had ever seen. And after going through the endless white clouds, Chu Feng was involuntarily dumbstruck and couldn't avoid inhaling a breath of air. It was because he astonishedly discovered in the distant white clouds there stood a floating mountain range. The mountain range was not a steep one that penetrated through the white clouds. It actually grew atop the white clouds. Moreover, that mountain range was very pretty. There were countless peaks within and waterfalls as well that cascaded down. They were like white-colored water dragons as they entered the white clouds from the mountain peaks, giving rise to large splashes and projecting many rainbows. Yet, when Chu Feng was still under the white clouds, he clearly didn't see a single drop of water, which meant the water that flowed down from the waterfalls, despite landing in the clouds, hadn't seeped through them and sprayed down. Chu Feng had seen floating islands. As long as an appropriate amount of formations was added, it was actually not hard. The everlasting sea of blood had plenty of them. However, it was the first time Chu Feng saw such an enormous mountain range floating. He simply didn't dare to imagine what sort of formation was required to maintain it. He only knew that an extremely powerful technique was needed, and in short, it was something he could not even touch. Most importantly, the Misty Peak was already built above the white clouds. But at that moment, as they stepped on the peak of the white clouds and looked up, Chu Feng amazedly discovered that in the distant sky upwards, there were still more beautiful white clouds. The clouds were positioned too high, and even though Chu Feng could already fly, he also knew that with his current strength, he could still not reach that height furthermore. Although the white clouds were slowly drifting about, they still lingered on the Misty Peak. It meant that the white clouds might not be naturally formed, but from some sort of powerful formation. It had to be said that even though he already knew how special the Misty Peak was before even arriving, when he truly saw it, Chu Feng still felt the scene to be extremely pleasant. At the same time, Chu Feng was even more curious as to whose great creation it was. "How is this the Misty Peak? From what I see, it should be called the Floating Mountain Range," Chu Feng jokingly said after praising. Junior Wuqing is truly comedic. After hearing Chu Feng's words, Jiang Wanshi couldn't help laughing while covering her mouth. Then she said, the mysticality of the Misty Peak does not stop there. Junior Wuqing, you see the white clouds above right. Those clouds and the ones under our feet are a part of the Misty Peak's formation. The white clouds floating in the air will produce different temperatures according to the difference in time. That causes the Misty Peak to have the rare change in the 4 seasons. Usually speaking, this area is warm throughout the year. It's quite evident when spring, summer, and autumn appears, but winter is, in reality, non-existent. Using a formation to create change in the 4 seasons, that is truly impressive. The more he heard Jiang Wanshi's explanation, the more Chu Feng praised how special that place was, and more so, he knew what it was called the strangest land in the Eastern Sea region. That's right, Senior Jiang. Isn't the Misty Peak the place where Lady Payao Mayao lives in isolation? Why are there so many young cultivators on the road here? Could it be that they are all coming for Lady Payao Mayao, wanting her to be their master? Yet this amount is a bit too much, isn't it? Suddenly, Chu Feng asked curiously because on the road there, he really did see many cultivators with decent cultivation. Within, many were martial lords, and only a small amount was in the heaven realm. Moreover, they were not old. Not a single one was over 30 years of age. That made Chu Feng suspicious. At first, Chu Feng assumed those people only came to find a master. After all, Lady Payao Mayao's name was so widespread. But the nearer they got to the Misty Peak, the more Chu Feng felt that something was wrong. Putting aside that the people who were there could be called the dragon within men, young ages, yet having extremely powerful cultivation, just the amount alone meant that something wrong, because there was really too many. Jiang Wanshi first chuckled with her mouth covered when she heard Chu Feng question, then said to Chu Feng with suspense, "It seems like Junior Wuqing still doesn't know too much about the things in the Eastern Sea region." "Senior Jiang, what exactly is happening?" Chu Feng asked curiously as he was successfully caught by tension. "They should all be coming for the," Jiang Wanshi said, "martial marking immortal realm." Chu Feng was even more intrigued upon hearing those words. "Junior Wuqing, didn't I tell you that this Misty Peak is very special? This martial marking immortal realm is one of the representations of the Misty Peak," Jiang Wanshi said with a smile. "Senior Jiang, don't keep me in the dark anymore. What exactly is so special about this martial marking immortal realm that has attracted so many young geniuses here? From what I see, all of the Eastern Sea region's geniuses have come, right?" Chu Feng stood there observing, and had already discovered quite a few geniuses with outstanding cultivation. He believed that in the Eastern Sea region, these geniuses were absolutely the apical ones. And since so many geniuses had appeared at this place, it meant one thing: there must be some sort of great benefit for the cultivators of the young generation contained within the martial marking immortal realm. The martial marking immortal realm is a completely different world. The entrance of this world is on top of the Misty Peak. However, the gate of this entrance opens every 6 years, and those over the age of 30 cannot enter. Also, within the martial marking immortal realm, there are mystical martial markings. After entering, one can collect these markings. From what I've heard, the martial markings collected can be exchanged in the Misty Peak's martial skill building for an equivalent martial skill. In the martial skill building, the worst skills are still rank 7 martial skills. As long as you collect many markings, you can even obtain a taboo martial skill. Taboo martial skill. Interest immediately came to Chu Feng upon hearing those words because from Ya Fei, he had experienced a taboo martial skill firsthand. He knew that despite possessing the danger of backlash, taboo martial skills still had unordinary power. Although the secret skills Chu Feng grasped were powerful, they had to grow bit by bit. But taboo martial skills did not need to. As long as one successfully cultivated them, they could obtain powerful strength. So, Chu Feng was very interested in the taboo martial skills. That's right, it's the taboo martial skills. They are priceless treasures, and in the entire Eastern Sea region right now, The number of people who grasp taboo martial skills are few within few. Even the ones that the immortal execution archipelago own can only be learnt by the peak of geniuses. Thus, the price of taboo martial skills is extremely high. And in the martial marking immortal realm, there exists a chance to obtain taboo martial skills. Naturally, it makes the powers of various places gaze at it with greed. So every time the martial marking immortal realm opens, every power will send their most excellent people in the younger generation to this place. But sadly, up until now, there are very, very few people who were able to obtain a taboo martial skill in that place. For example, in the last time the martial marking immortal realm was open, only one person obtained a taboo martial skill, the young master of the immortal execution archipelago, Murong Shun. Xianxia said. Murong Shun. Hearing that name, Chu Feng's gaze couldn't help but slightly flicker. It wasn't the first time he had heard that name after coming to the Eastern Sea region, and naturally, he knew who Murong Shun was. The man who was going to marry Zai Ling. Junior Wuqing, you also know of Murong Shun. He is indeed quite a character, so young yet already possessing a sense-defying level of cultivation. He can put up a fight against those in the older generation, and he's the publicly recognized #1 genius in the Eastern Sea region. There are even some people who say that Murong Shun's talent far surpasses the exceptional genius back then, whose name stunned the Eastern Sea region, Huangfu Haoiwei. However, regretfully, Murong Shun is exactly 30 this year, and already exceeds the limit to enter the martial marking immortal realm. Otherwise, with his current cultivation, I'm sure he would reap even greater rewards if he were to enter the martial marking immortal realm again. After all, he was already so outstanding 6 years ago. When Murong Shun was mentioned, Xianxia also praised without end, her face full of reverence. Chu Feng only smiled faintly at Xianxia's action, without even an iota of blame. Even though Murong Shun was his archenemy, that was completely unrelated to Xianxia. Besides, females liked excellent males, and naturally Xianxia was no exception. There was nothing wrong about that. Run, keep on running, let me see how far you can run for. When I catch you, I will definitely cripple you. But just at that moment, from the direction of the misty peak, there suddenly came bursts of yells. Looking towards the origin of the sound, several people were flying over with quick speed. The one in the front was a female who wore cloth clothing and looked like a beggar. She was too dirty, chaotic hair and mud all over her body. Who knew how long she hadn't bathed for? And if weren't for the decent curve in front of her chest, it was likely that no one could recognize that she was a woman. But even though the female was dirty and looked like a beggar, she had the cultivation of the 9th level of the heaven realm, even a bit stronger than Xianxia. At that very instant, she was using a very special bodily martial skill and crazily dashed towards them. Behind the woman followed 5 men. The cultivation of the 5 men was not weak. They were all martial lords, 4 of whom were rank 1 martial lords, and one slightly fat man was a rank 2 martial lord. The speed of the 5 men was extremely fast as well, especially so for the slightly fat man who was a rank 2 martial lord. His speed far surpassed the other 4, and at that instant, he was also using a fairly strong bodily martial skill. As he chased, no matter how much more profound the unclean woman's bodily martial skill was, it mattered not, as the difference between a martial lord and the heaven realm was too great. Gradually she was getting caught up. Still escaping. Let me see where you can escape to. Suddenly, the rank 2 martial lord explosively shouted. Boundless purple-colored gas then surged out of his body. It was a spirit formation. It covered the sky and earth, instantly wrapping around the woman. Finally, it became a cage, imprisoning her. At first, the woman tried to use martial skills to break open the spirit formation, but it was useless as it was one laid by a martial lord. How could she, a mere person in the heaven realm, break through it? So as she could do nothing, she started to loudly curse. God damn, let me out. You 5 bastards, on what basis are you catching me for? I came here to enter the martial marking immortal realm. By treating me like this, you are violating the rules of the Misty Peak. Are you not afraid that Lady Payao Mayao will punish all of you? HMPH, entering the martial marking immortal realm. You, with your heaven realm cultivation, think you're qualified. Besides, not only did you create fake Misty badges, you even dared to sell them to us, causing us to be humiliated and lose face within many of the same generation. If I don't give you a lesson, you will truly think us to be fools. The rank 2 martial lord shouted loudly as he held a strange badge in his hand. I only said it was a Misty badge, but I never said that it's the same one as the Misty badge of the Misty Peak. Moreover, it wasn't I who forced the deal, but all of you who obstinately wanted me to sell them to you. What does that have to do with me? The young woman said cunningly while forcing reason with her hands on her waist. Damn, you even dare to refute. Today, B*TCH, I will beat you to death. Seeming to be quite infuriated by her, one of the rank 1 martial lords waved his hand and sent a slap through the air. Whoosh however, the unexpected thing was as she faced the attack from a rank 1 martial lord, she slanted her body slightly and actually evaded it. In addition, she started to use her heaven power and shouted loudly to her surroundings. Help! 5 men are beating a woman. Everyone come see. At that instant, the distance to the Misty Peak was no longer far, so the number of people there was not few. Hearing such a yell, all of them couldn't help casting their gazes to the origin, seeing what exactly was happening. However, seeing such a scene, the rank 2 martial lord widened his eyes and coldly shouted, I am the young master of the domineering Tiger Villa, Chu Feng. This woman cheated away my money, and I am only demanding it back. In addition, as only a warning, I advise my friends here to not be too nosy. Even though Chu Feng's tone seemed polite, in reality it was full of cautionary intentions. Everyone who had the ability to come to this place did not have weak cultivation, but at present, of the nearby people, the strongest were only rank 1 martial lords. In addition, the domineering Tiger Villa did have some position and power in the Eastern Sea region. So, after knowing Chu Feng's identity, those who were watching the liveliness all increased their forwarding speed, not a single one preparing to butt into this matter. Seeing the cold human emotions and the fickle-minded world, even though there were many passing by, there was simply no one willing to help herself the arrogant airs that she had earlier instantly vanished, and she said with a frivolous smile, Hey, it is only a few low-rank martial medicine. Isn't it fine if I just give it back? HMPH. Of course you will give back our martial medicine. But do you really think so long as you give us back our martial medicine, you can make fools of us for nothing? You truly have too great of an imagination. Chu Feng coldly snorted, then leaped forward and rushed into the spirit formation. At the same time, his hand was already squeezing the woman's throat. At that instant, she did all she could to struggle, waving her hands, powerfully hammering Chu Feng's arm, but it was useless, and it could not move Chu Feng. She only felt the hand that squeezed her throat getting tighter and tighter. Not only was she unable to breathe, she even felt that her neck was going to be forcibly snapped off. Her face was fraught with pain. However, just as the woman thought she was going to die, an explosion suddenly burst out, and at the same time, a powerful current of air descended from above. The strength of the air current blew the 4 rank 1 martial lords several thousand meters away, and even the rank 2 martial lord, Chu Feng, changed his expression. However, he did not back away, and instead strengthened the hand that he was squeezing the woman's neck with. Just at that moment, another hand abruptly appeared and landed on Chu Feng's wrist. With a cracking sound, Chu Feng felt his wrist go soft, leaving him no choice but to loosen his clenching hand. Only after taking several steps back did Chu Feng discover a person appearing by the woman's side. And of course, that person was Chu Feng. Who are you? Chu Feng coldly shouted, his eyes full of enmity. It was because he discovered that even though Chu Feng was strong, he was no more than a rank 1 martial lord. Being struck back by a rank 1 martial lord made him very displeased. It is not important who I am. The important thing is that I am not very used to men hitting women, Chu Feng said with a light smile, but his eyes were full of derision. Simultaneously, xianxia also came up to Chu Feng's side, supporting the female who was rapidly gasping. Damn, such nerves. Do you know who we are? You dare to meddle into our matter. And at that instant, the 4 rank 1 martial lords who were pushed back by Chu Feng had already charged up with stomachs full of fury, and also started to attack him. Even though the 4 attacks were not martial skills, they could not be underestimated. After all, the strength of martial power could fragment the air, and in reality, facing the 4 bursts of auras that were coming straight at them, fear emerged onto the faces of xianxia and that woman. Especially for xianxia, she couldn't help but pull the woman back because she, who was only in the 8th level of the heaven realm, simply had no way of fighting against that aura. Even if she used her strongest technique, she couldn't. That was the difference between the heaven realm and a martial lord. Seeing xianxia's timid reaction, the rank 1 martial lords who joined up to attack curled up their mouths to form a smile and brimmed with pride. However, when xianxia feared their attack, they didn't expect Chu Feng to have not the slightest bit of dread. Scram! Chu Feng stood where he was without even moving. With an explosively shout, powerful might burst out, and a formless shockwave swept out, engulfing the 4 people. The strong power not only shattered their attacks, it even pushed them back again. Are you truly looking to die? Seeing that, Fan no longer watched and did nothing on the side. He threw out an abrupt punch, attacking Chu Feng. Boom *, when it was thrown, the sky instantly changed color. Just the might alone caused the surrounding air to have cracks like a shattered mirror. It was not an ordinary attack but a very powerful martial skill. HMPH. However, Chu Feng was still not afraid by that punch. He raised his own fist and actually threw it out similarly. Moreover, he didn't use any martial skills. It was a very ordinary punch that only contained martial power. Boom rumble 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 *, the collision of the 2 fists instantly made a deafening explosion. A berserk shock wave rippled out, sweeping through the horizon. The air cracked above, and the water boiled below. The atmosphere produced was very terrifying. Being affected by such horrifying might, Fan slipped and was forced back several steps. Yet looking back at Chu Feng, he did not even move an inch and was still standing there unmoved. How is this happening? That guy is clearly only a rank 1 martial lord. How can he have such strength? Only then did the 4 people struck back by Chu Feng come to a revelation, realizing that Chu Feng wasn't as simple as he seemed. As for Fan, his face was similarly grave as he was in quite a difficult situation. He asked coldly, "No wonder this girl dares to be so arrogant, so she has helpers. There will always be consequences for people who do culpable things. Since you dare to help this woman, do you dare to report your name? HMPH. Trash like you usually do not deserve to know my name. But today, my mood is extremely good. I will make an exception and give you a chance. Raise your ears and listen up. I am called Wuqing, belonging to no school nor sect. I walk alone. In the future, if you want revenge, come straight at me." Chu Feng's words were full of disdain, and he did indeed not put any of them in his eyes. You have guts. You will have things coming in the future." Being looked down upon by Chu Feng, Fan gnashed his teeth in anger, but he could do nothing, so he turned around and left. He did so because the exchange just now allowed him to see how powerful Chu Feng was. If he fought more against him, he had no confidence that he could defeat Chu Feng. It was fine if he were to defeat Chu Feng. After all, he, as a rank 2 martial lord, should defeat a rank 1 martial lord. However, if he were to lose to Chu Feng, that would be too shameful. So, currently, he had no more plans to fight against Chu Feng. Brother Fan, you're letting him go just like that. Fan's several companions felt very confused when he actually let Chu Feng go. It is already late now. If we don't head to the Misty Peak, we won't be able to get in. None of you would want to pass the night above this ocean, right? Besides, even though that girl is damnable, she's a female after all. Just now, we've already attracted some people's attention. If there's one that blabs about and pulls some nosy people, it will be disadvantageous to us. Fan naturally had to find an excuse for his cowardice. Brother Fan is reasonable. It will not be too late to give a person like him a lesson later. Hearing that, even though the four others knew what he was thinking, it wasn't good for them to shame him further, so they could only leave just like that. You're too handsome, sir. To repay this life-saving favor, I am willing to give my everything to you. After Fan left, Chu Feng suddenly felt a softness behind his back. Turning his head around, he saw the woman leap towards him from behind and tightly hug him. At that instant, Chu Feng discovered that she was truly dirty to an unordinary degree. Aside from her big eyes and white teeth that she revealed when she smiled, she was simply black all over. In addition, her dark skin wasn't a natural color. It was the accumulation of grime and dirty stains, along with the smell of a sewer. It had to be said that her gift of hugging did not give Chu Feng any bit of comfortableness. Instead, it made him feel slightly awkward because she was really too dirty. However, Chu Feng, who was cultured and refined, did not push her away when he was toyed by her. He waved his hand and flung her away. Then he said to her, "If you do many unrighteous things, you are only committing suicide. Although they are wrong by being greedy of small advantages, you are also wrong by selling fake badges. This is in the territory of the Misty Peak. If you allow them to know about this, I'm sure you will face a great disaster. So it's best for you to quickly leave." Only after saying that to her did Chu Feng look at Xianxia and said, "Senior Jiang, let's go." Xianxia nodded, then followed him. At that moment, even more complex expressions appeared on her eyes as she gazed at Chu Feng. Previously, she personally saw Chu Feng defeat 4 rank 1 martial lords without even moving. And moreover, after defeating a rank 2 martial lord, Xianxia praised Chu Feng's powerful strength even more. They were both disciples of famous masters, but thinking of the differences between her and Chu Feng, and recollecting when she even put up an arrogant attitude when they first met, she couldn't help feeling a bit ashamed. "Sir, wait." But just at that moment, that woman ran over again. However, this time, she didn't hug Chu Feng and stopped a meter away from him. Spreading open her hands, she gave a badge to Chu Feng, saying, "Sir, this martial marking immortal realm only opens once every 6 years. At present, almost all of the peak geniuses of the Eastern Sea region have come here, and they are lining up outside right now. All of their identities must be individually examined, or else they are not allowed entry. Just now, you said you belong to no school nor sect, so I'm afraid you won't be able to enter. However, as long as you hold this badge, you have no need to queue up and can enter. Lady, there is no need for you to worry. The 2 of us can definitely enter," Xianxia said extremely confidently. "You seem to be very confident, and I'm sure you must have some sort of background. However, the Misty Peak has always viewed all equally. Right now, of the so many peak geniuses at this place, which one of them doesn't have some background? All of them are obediently waiting in line. On what basis are you allowed in? Or perhaps you are an outstanding genius and have already received the Misty Badge that the Misty Peak sent out, and that you can receive the best treatment and directly enter?" The woman asked tauntingly as she waved the badge around in her hand. "You?" Hearing her speak like that, Xianxia was slightly infuriated, but very soon she controlled her emotions. Rather than showing anger, she smiled and said to her, "I have indeed not received a Misty Badge, but I have no need for your counterfeit." "Oi, oi, oi, how do you know mine is a counterfeit? Have you truly seen the Misty Badge? Besides, I am giving it to this sir who helped me. What are you doing, being so blabby?" The woman was very domineering and had actually forgotten all about Xianxia supporting her up as she fiercely refuted her. As the 2 of them were having a war of words, Chu Feng was instead carefully examining that badge. He discovered that its shape was very beautiful, as if it were the wings of a swan. Moreover, Within contained indescribable strange gas. Although from the external appearance, it was not different at all than the ones Chu Feng and the others had, but looking into it, there was an enormous difference. Looking back at the woman's logical and mighty appearance, Chu Feng felt more and more that she was not a simple person. So he stopped xianxia and said to the woman, "That's fine, I will believe you once. I hope you aren't troubling me." As he spoke, Chu Feng accepted the badge. "Don't worry, why would I trick you? He. The woman grinned and even cast Chu Feng a lascivious look. However, with dignity like hers, it really couldn't create any power of attraction to Chu Feng. The woman was quite tactful, however, and immediately left after giving the badge to Chu Feng without any more nagging. Although Jiang Wanshi expressed confusion over Chu Feng's action of taking the woman's badge, she didn't say anything. Thus, Chu Feng and Jiang Wanshi flew towards the misty peak that they nearly reached. The misty peak was, in reality, a vast mountain range. The area it covered was broad and made people praise at its perfection. But there was only one entrance to that vast mountain range. It was because there was an invisible spirit formation covering the entire mountain range. Up until now, there hadn't been a single person who could break through that spirit formation. To want to enter the misty peak meant one had to enter through the spirit formation entrance. When they arrived at the entrance of the misty peak, Chu Feng and Jiang Wanshi discovered that it was as the woman said. At present, there really was a large number of groups gathering at that place. They were all of the younger generation, and were all from famous sects or were disciples of famous masters. The weakest was in the 9th level of the heaven realm, but even more of them were martial lords. Even though most of them were rank 1 martial lords, they were in realms akin to legends in the continent of the 9 provinces. At present, there were actually so many who appeared there, and most were even young martial lords below the age of 30. That was enough to state one thing. Putting aside the limited resources in the continent of the 9 provinces, with just talent alone, there were huge differences. The people in the 9 provinces were unable to step into the martial lord realm, was more because of their own lack of comprehension ability than the lack of resources. So it couldn't be helped when Chu Feng and the others were so overpowering in the 9 provinces, yet after arriving in the Eastern Sea region, their overpowering strength was greatly diminished. The people in the Eastern Sea region were not the lackluster people of the 9 provinces. At least, if one randomly released any of the people who currently appeared in the Misty Peak to the continent of the 9 provinces, that person would become an exceptional genius whose name would be passed down the generations. However, even though these geniuses were strong, there was still some distance between them and Chu Feng. However, Chu Feng was not complacent because of his aptitude. Instead, he pondered, if the geniuses of the Eastern Sea region were already like that, how powerful would the geniuses in the holy land of martialism be? Perhaps they would surpass himself by a large margin, right? Then no wonder the holy land of martialism became the holy land of cultivators. Perhaps in their eyes, Chu Feng and the others were truly no more than garbage unsuitable for cultivation. Damn it, I didn't expect the opening of the martial marking immortal realm to attract so many people. It's reasonable for the geniuses of the martial lord realm, but even people in the 9th level of the heaven realm near the age of 30 are here too. Do they truly think they have the qualifications to enter the martial marking immortal realm? With so many people lining up for their identities to be examined, when it's our turn, the night will probably be dark. It seems like we can only wait for my master to come. Looking at that scene, Jiang Wanshi lost all spirit. Although she had come to the Misty Peak a few times with Chioshi Fuyan, it was all when she directly brought her in. Other than Lady Payao Mayao and the people with rather prestigious statuses in the Misty Peak, there was simply no one who recognized her, and the ones guarding the entrance at present were ordinary servants in the Misty Peak. Although they had decent cultivation, they were no more than servants. They didn't recognize Jiang Wanshi, so she couldn't do anything either. They could only wait for Chioshi Fuyan to take care of the demon quicker and bring them in then. Brother T Fan, look, isn't that the damn brat who nosed into our matter? Suddenly, from the latter half of the line of people, someone pointed the sky and exclaimed. It was the several people who clashed against Chu Feng discovering him and Jiang Wanshi, HMPH, who told him to be so meddlesome. It looks like they will sleep outside the Misty Peak tonight, T Fan said, and smiled in a schadenfreude manner. The Misty Peak closed their entrance before the sun set, and judging by the number of people in line as well as the examination speed, they were able to enter just before sunset. But if Chu Feng and Jiang Wanshi wanted to queue up now, they no longer had the chance to enter before nightfall. However, had Chu Feng not interfered and immediately came to line up, it would have been them who were in front currently. So that was why they took joy in their misfortune and felt that it was well-deserved. Look, what's that thing in that boy's hand? Damn, isn't it the Misty Badge? It was definitely given to him by that damn woman. That's true. It's the exact same as the ones in our hands. He wouldn't be trying to use that fake badge to mix in right. He shouldn't. No matter how much more stupid that boy is, he wouldn't reach this degree of stupidity. T Fan and the others discussed as they looked at the Misty Badge in Chu Feng's hand. Senior Jiang, normally speaking, how long does Senior Payao Mayao need to handle that demon? Chu Feng asked Jiang Wanshi above the horizon. I'm truly unsure. If it's quick, then just a moment. But if it's long, then several days. According to my master, even though Senior Payao Mayao has overwhelming strength, she had once fought against the demon for several days, and even returned with injuries. Jiang Wanshi replied, It's that powerful. Hearing those words, Chu Feng felt greatly shocked. If what Jiang Wanshi was true, then wasn't the demon sealed by the Misty Peak a bit too powerful? Merely an illusion projected out could injure Lady Payao Mayao. What if it were its original body? How powerful would it be then? But being shocked was being shocked. A matter like that wasn't something Chu Feng could interfere in with his cultivation. So he said to Jiang Wanshi, Senior Jiang, doesn't this mean that we don't know when Senior Chioshi will return? If she can't return today, won't we have to stay out for a night? This. Jiang Wanshi mulled over it, but she indeed did not know when Chioshi Fuyan was going to return. What I think is, let's try out this Misty Badge. Chu Feng smiled as he held the badge in his hand. Junior Wuqing, you should absolutely not do this. Do you believe this badge is genuine? Hearing that, Jiang Wanshi's face changed greatly, and she spoke to stop him. However, Chu Feng lightly smiled and said, No matter if it's real or fake, we will know with a try. For some reason, I feel like that girl won't do anything detrimental to me. Besides, so what if it's a fake? At most, the crowd will laugh at us for a while. Afterwards, we will just go and line up. Senior Jiang cares about the eyes of men, but I, Wuqing, do not. You don't need to accompany me. I will just go alone. After speaking, Chu Feng leaped forward and flew towards the entrance. Junior Wuqing. Why? At that instant, Jiang Wanshi had planned to chase after him, but ultimately, after pressing her lips together, she retracted the foot that had already stepped out and did not continue following because she believed firmly that the badge was definitely a fake. Although she, Jiang Wanshi, wasn't much in comparison to the geniuses there. After all, she was a disciple of a famous master. Of the many experts' disciples in the Lover's Terrace, she was still one of the persons at the top, so she didn't want to lose face. Brother T Fan, look, that guy is actually flying towards the entrance. He wouldn't truly want to use that fake badge to try and get in amidst the busyness, right? One of the rank 1 martial lords, Chu Feng, struck back before spoke as he pointed at the sky. It's unlikely, unless his brain's been squashed from before. Only then would he do such an idiotic action. T Fan shook his head. He didn't feel that Chu Feng seemed to be a person with no intelligence. He's really doing it. Look, he is truly going over. The person continued. Damn, this isn't true, is it? Could it be that he is truly a fool? And seeing with his own eyes Chu Feng landing at the forefront of the queue, even T Fan jumped from fright with his face full of disbelief. Oi, what are you doing? Why aren't you waiting in line and have stood in front of me? Now scram to the end of the line." The one who stood at the front of the line was a rank 1 martial lord. The person before him just entered, and it was his turn to take out his identification objects to be examined. However, he didn't expect Chu Feng to suddenly come down from above and land right in front of him. That made him furious. That's right. Where did such an uncivilized thing come from? Haven't you seen everyone else queuing up here? Who do you think you are to dare not to wait in line? At the same time, the people behind the man were also angry. After all, they had arrived painfully at that location through a lengthy wait. The one currently guarding the spirit formation entrance was a white and gray-haired old man. He was also a martial lord, but his cultivation was very high. He was a rank 6 martial lord. It was even one rank higher than the outstanding genius of the immortal execution archipelago, Ya Fei. He examined Chu Feng. However, he didn't feel that Chu Feng, with his cultivation, was able to receive the Misty Badge, so he very strictly said, "Return to the line right this instant. If you break the rules, regardless of where you come from, do not blame me for being impolite. Oi, I have the Misty Badge. Do I still need to wait in line?" Chu Feng calmly smiled at the old man's rebuke, then flashed the badge in his hand. "Ha ha ha, Misty Badge. A person like you, receiving a Misty Badge. From what I see, you bought it from that beggar woman just now, right?" But after seeing the badge in Chu Feng's hand, before the old man even spoke, the crowd behind him started to loudly jeer and laugh, all of them feeling that the badge in Chu Feng's hand was fake. As for the old man, he didn't look straight at the badge in Chu Feng's hand either. He coldly shouted, "You truly know not of repent. I've already warned that you cannot take a fake badge and try to mix through. Yet you remain so ignorant and view my words as wind brushing past your ears. It seems like today I must give you a lesson." As he spoke, the old man's sword-like brows slanted inwards, boundless pressure then surging out straight towards Chu Feng. However, Chu Feng feared naught when he faced such danger head-on. He held the badge and said to the old man, "You didn't even see and already know that this is fake." Asterisk, and also at that moment, a formless force burst out of the badge in Chu Feng's hand. Not only did it engulf the old man's pressure in an instant, it even forced him over several steps back. The old man's face couldn't help changing greatly, and when he looked back at the badge in Chu Feng's hand, his eyes were full of shock. He then hurriedly stood back to where he was, bowed and saluted respectfully to Chu Feng, and said, "This one has been a fool and hadn't seen it was the true Misty Badge. I ask you for forgiveness." What? The Misty Badge in that boy's hand is actually authentic. The group of people watching the action behind Chu Feng dropped their jaws at the old man's sudden change of attitude. "Senior, you were only being dutiful. However, I still have a senior who is with me. I wonder, can we enter together?" Chu Feng lightly smiled. Although the old man was unkind a moment ago, Chu Feng didn't make things too difficult for him. After all, he had such strong cultivation, no matter what position he held in the Misty Peak. Just based off of the difference in their cultivation, Chu Feng couldn't make him lose face in front of so many people by insulting him. "If I may ask, what is the name of your senior and where did she come from?" Indeed, when Chu Feng was so polite, the old man very satisfiedly smiled, and his attitude and treatment towards Chu Feng became even more kind. Simultaneously, the old man stated to flip through the thick book in his hand. Every single person's name from all sorts of schools and sects in the Eastern Sea region was densely recorded within. It was for verifying identities. "My senior's name is xianxia. She is the disciple of Lady Chioshui of the Lover's Terrace," Chu Feng said truthfully. "Oh, so it's Lady Chioshui's disciple. She is a close friend of, and before she left, she had specially stated that if Lady Chioshui and her disciple comes, they can directly enter with no need for any badges. Only a proof of identity is required," the old man said slightly surprisedly. "Then thank you, senior." As for Chu Feng, he too didn't expect to have already left a message behind, So he quickly called xianxia over. After a simple examination of identity, the two of them were gazed at by countless numbers of people as they stepped into the misty peak. Damn, really. That boy and girl have actually managed to enter. They've truly cut the queue and entered. How is this possible? Could it be that the misty badge he had was real? But with his cultivation, how could he have had the qualifications to receive one? Almost every single person was dumbfounded by that scene, especially Chu Feng and the others who had clashed with Chu Feng. All of them stared with widened eyes, their faces full of the most extreme of expressions. After entering the misty peak, Chu Feng and xianxia were brought to a peak for resting. There were several palaces on that peak, and even though it wasn't that luxurious, there was a special sort of charm, refreshing and natural structures, perfectly harmonized with the beautiful sceneries of the misty peak. Although the residential conditions were quite nice, there was no freedom of movement. On the way, Chu Feng discovered that there were truly quite a few misty peak experts. Moreover, in many places, there were people guarding. Aside from the specially set residential regions, it was forbidden to stroll about on their own. Even guests who received the best treatment such as Chu Feng and xianxia could not. The guards in this place are truly not simple. They are actually all martial lords, Chu Feng exclaimed in the palace. But of course, the misty peak is, after all, the strange land that can prolong one's life. That's also the main reason why many hidden experts are willing to come to this place and serve. However, even though they have decent cultivation, they don't have much of a status in the misty peak. Other than the four-season senior's position is the highest. All others are servants that they can order around, xianxia said. So that means other than Chun Wu, Xia Yu, Qiu Zhu, and Dong Shui hasn't accepted any other disciples. Chu Feng asked curiously. These four seniors are disciples senior Piao Miao, meticulously selected. All of them are true geniuses, something that is far from being comparable to my sisters. When the four people, Chun, Xia, Qiu, and Dong, were mentioned, there involuntarily appeared some shame on xianxia's face. Senior Jiang's talent is already very outstanding. In a few years, you may even surpass them. Chu Feng consoled when he saw xianxia's feeling of inferiority. Junior Wuqing, you think too highly of me. Others do not know, but I do. We sisters cannot be discussed on the same level as the four of them. They are geniuses carefully chosen by Senior Piao Miao. Not only in terms of talent, even in terms of beauty they are superior. They are the people beyond the masses, the geniuses within geniuses. As for us, we are no more than orphans kindly raised by Master. If it weren't for our Master's devoted development, it would be impossible for us to have our current achievements. Even the spirit power we have was passed down by Master from her great, painstaking efforts. Speaking to that point, she seemed even more ashamed because in her heart, she knew clearly that she was no more than a genius. She could even barely call herself that wasted large amounts of resources. If her master weren't Chioshui Fuyan, then her current achievements would most definitely be as ordinary as possible. Senior Jiang, please don't think like that. Even though large amounts of cultivation resources can indeed make a person have greater accomplishments, if a person has mediocre aptitude, their accomplishments will still be limited. Senior Jiang already has such cultivation at such an age. Becoming a martial lord is only a matter of time. You need to know that in the place where I grew up, almost no one could become a martial lord. At that place, martial lords were legends. To be able to enter the heaven realm meant you were a peak genius. But do you know how many people there are in that continent? Any random power has several million disciples. And for slightly larger ones, they even have several tens of millions of disciples. However, even so, a very few number of people could enter the heaven realm. Most all halted in the profound realm. If Senior Jiang's cultivation is ordinary, then what would those people count as? Chu Feng said in comfort. Really? Indeed, after hearing Chu Feng's words, a trace of her expression turning to joy appeared on xianxia's face. Of course it's true. If Senior Jiang doesn't believe me, then in the future, I can bring you to the continent of the 9 provinces for a stroll and bring you to see the place I grew up in, Chu Feng said with a certain face. Okay, Junior Wuqing, this is something that you promised me. Don't go back on your words. I will absolutely not. Heh. Despite knowing clearly that Chu Feng's words were to soothe her, Jiang Wanshi's heart still felt quite a bit more comfortable. Afterwards, the two chatted for quite a while more, and even ate dinner together. Only after night came, and Chioshui Fuyan had yet to come and find them, did Jiang Wanshi return to her own resting area. As for Chu Feng, he didn't worry much. Although Yan Ruyu was in Chioshui Fuyan's hands, he believed that she had the ability to protect Yan Ruyu well. Next morning, Chu Feng's door was knocked. Opening it, he saw that it was actually Chioshui Fuyan and Jiang Wanshi. However, other than them, there was another grand character. Naturally, it was the owner of the Misty Peak. According to Jiang Wanshi, had lived for almost 1,000 years. So Chu Feng initially thought that she was an old lady that could not be older than she already was. However, in reality, from S external appearance, she seemed to not even pass the Middle Ages. Although her image was not outstanding and could be said to be quite ordinary, there was a unique demeanor on her body. Overall, that woman's strength absolutely reached an extremely terrifying state. After she saw Chu Feng, her eyes flashed. 2 fierce gazes pierced through Chu Feng's body like invisible blades, beginning to carefully examine him. Not only did they want to see through Chu Feng's cultivation, it was as if they also wanted to see through Chu Feng's nature. At that moment, even Chu Feng couldn't help feeling chills going down his spine, because when the gaze permeated his body, he truly experienced how powerful that old monster was. She was even on a completely different level than Chioshui Fuyan, and was a true unrivaled expert.